right, good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Tuesday, September 5th, 2023 Board of Commissioners meeting. Just prior to the meeting, the board attended a Public Works Maintenance Facility ribbon cutting ceremony. Great job on that building, and it's nice that we finally have some place for those guys to go instead of working out of a shed out back here in double wide. So, next up is our invocation and Pledge of Allegiance. We do not have anyone signed up this evening to deliver an invocation and lead us in a Pledge of Allegiance. And as always, I open the floor to the audience and ask if there's anyone who would like to do that. Seeing that no one is jumping up this evening, I'll ask Commissioner Beaumont if he would be so kind this evening.
Thank you, Heavenly Father. Lord, we thank you for this glorious evening, the beautiful weather that we celebrated this past weekend, Father, reminding us how wonderful a place Currituck County is. What a wonderful place to live, work, and, Father, recreate. Lord, we ask your blessing upon this evening, Father. I pray that you would give each of us commissioners wisdom as we consider the issues before us this evening. Lord, that we be able to accurately and succinctly, Father, come to resolutions on the issues before us. And Father, I pray that you would bless each and every person in this room and those that have still to arrive, Father, that their return this evening would be safe without mishap. But we ask your blessing upon this Board of Commissioners meeting, this county, this great state of North Carolina, and the United States. In Jesus' name,
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. Thank you, Paul. Next up, we have our Ethics Awareness and Conflict of Interest reminder from our county attorney.
Pursuant to GS 153A-44, a commissioner has a duty to vote on matters coming before the board, but may be excused from voting on issues involving the commissioner's own financial interest, official conduct, or on matters on which the commissioner is prohibited from voting under GS 14-234 or 160D-109. In accordance with Chapter 2, Division 3 of the Currituck County Code of Ordinances, it is the duty of every commissioner to avoid both conflicts of interest and appearances of conflict. Does any commissioner have any known conflict of interest or appearance of conflict with respect to any matters coming before the Board of Commissioners in this meeting? If so, please identify the conflict or appearance of conflict.
As before, we have an agenda item that was left open from our last meeting, so I will be accusing myself again for PB 87-19 Buck Island PED. And just while we have you at the mic, Commissioner McCord is going to have to recuse. When we get into that, would he have to get a motion from the board to recuse himself, or can he just?
I think he could. No, I don't think so, because the reason that he wouldn't be able to participate in Buck Island is because he wasn't present at the last meeting. So he just wouldn't participate or vote. I don't think you need a motion for that.
Okay. All right, very good. All right, next up is approval of the agenda. Before I call for a motion to approve the agenda, just for the public at large out there and anyone who may have looked through the agenda, we have inverted a few things in the agenda and reposted it publicly. I had a call from one of the applicants that's coming before this evening and asked to move it to a later session. So NAS Enterprises LLC will be moved to item 6 under public hearings and be heard later. The board has the amended agenda in front of them just for your records, and the Currituck County request to amend UDO 23-21 is going to be item number 2, and item number 3 will be Mr. Mims's application to amend the Unified Development Ordinance. So we've changed a little bit of the order tonight just for those out there that may be confused if you have an older version. And with that, I will open the floor for a motion from the board.
Move for approval.
Thank you. Second. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? All right, thank you. Next up is public comment. I have a couple people sign up tonight. Richard Barkalow. As always, Mr. Richard, we need your name and address for the record.
Richard Barkalow, 107 Chestnut Drive, Moayak.
Thank you, sir.
I just want to throw back at you the waterway going out by Pointers. I don't know if anybody's contacted anybody yet, but just coming in Sunday, had taken move about a 10-foot log out of the way just to get through. That log's been taken out of the water several times. I don't know if somebody keeps pushing it back in there or what, but if we could get somebody out there and at least remove the ones that are floating or something, it would be good.
Okay.
And one other thing I've seen on the consent agenda, well, it seems like money's pretty tight this year with a lot of people and everything, and I seen $1.5 million for windows for the courthouse. Doesn't it seem like you could wait on something like that? I don't see why it would be on there when we're trying to cut back right now. It seems like something like that we could wait on.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
All right, I don't have anyone else signed up for public comment tonight. Is there anyone in the room that would like to speak that did not sign up? All right, seeing none, I will close public comment. Kevin? Okay, sorry. All right, next up this evening is County Commissioners. I'll start to my left this evening with Commissioner Mike Payment.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I really don't have a whole lot to report down this evening, other than it's just extremely hot outside, and it makes for long days. That's about it.
You slightly melted today?
A little bit.
All right. How about you, Miss Kitty?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Since our last commissioner meeting, Commissioner Etheridge, Commissioner Jarvis, and myself had the opportunity to attend the 116th North Carolina Association of County Commissioners Conference. It was an opportunity for counties to come together to learn, network, and recharge. The theme of the conference was momentum, and hopefully we will continue to carry forth that momentum from the good ideas that were shared. We hope to make Currituck County the best it can be by implementing things that we learned at the conference. From inspiring keynote speakers to off-site events to workshops and sessions, I must say it was one of the best conferences that I've ever attended. And I hope next year maybe some of the fellow commissioners will have the opportunity to go, as well as the county manager. And we hope to share a lot more of this at our fall meeting that we'll have, the workshop this fall. At our conference, information was also shared from our association. We were all given the county map book, which we brought back to each one of the commissioners. And in this, the county map details the economic, health, and educational information from all 100 counties. And some interesting facts in this book concerning Currituck County is since 2013, our population has changed by 32.2%, making us number 3 in growth. Our median age is 43.8, and our population age 65 and above is only 17% of the population here in the county. But probably one of the most alarming facts in this book is that 33.3% of our population work in Currituck County, making us rank 93rd in North Carolina for people who work outside of their county. So I think we can officially call ourselves the bedroom community now. Also, if you've ever wondered about lottery money, we were also given a little, and we brought back also to the county commissioners, where the money goes after it's sent into the lottery. Currituck County Schools in 2022 received $1,921,652 from the sale of lottery tickets to help with educational programs, and also $607,000 going to school construction, repair, and renovation. So keep buying those lottery tickets. But the session most dear to me was the one on ensuring confidence in North Carolina elections and how your county can help. This session was led by the North Carolina Network for Fair, Safe, and Secure Election Commission, which is a bipartisan grassroots effort initiated by the Carter Center. It is led by former Mayor Jennifer Roberts of Charlotte and former North Carolina Supreme Court Justice Bob Orr, and is made up of civic, business, and religious leaders and citizens from both sides of the political aisle. The commission will examine how elections are administered, noting strengths and weaknesses, and research best practices in order to discover how to have a state-of-the-art, fair, safe, and secure elections here in North Carolina. I'm honored to be appointed to the Blue Ribbon Commission for this commission as the NCACC representative. And yes, you'll be hearing a lot more about this initiative in the months to come. Commissioner Jarvis and myself have already met with the election director and the board chairman and look forward to working closely with them to share information with the voting public through a town hall meeting. Yes, from keynote speakers who left us with sayings like, leadership is a lonely place, it's my fault even when it's not, and visionaries see things others can't see. Yes, I hope we have the leadership to lead, the ability to take responsibility for our mistakes, and the vision to implement new ideas to benefit the citizens of Currituck County. And I'd like to thank you for the opportunity that we had to attend and for us to be able to bring back visions for Currituck County. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Jarvis?
I'll just kind of echo some of the things that Kitty has mentioned. It was the best, by far, the best conference I've ever been to. Last year, I came back ready to help solve the opioid crisis after the meeting, and our opioid task force is continuing to meet to come up with a game plan for how we solve that problem here in Currituck County. This year, the sessions were over a variety of issues, but I have three big takeaways that I hope to bring to Currituck County. Kitty mentioned the renewing confidence in the elections, and congratulations to Kitty for being appointed to that Blue Ribbon Commission. As a civics teacher, it really makes me sad when I look at voter turnout. It also makes me shake my head when people voice the lack of confidence in our system. I always say the way to have confidence in our elections is to volunteer. And we'll be coming up on 2024 before you know it, so volunteer. Call the elections board, 232-2525, and volunteer. The second big takeaway was this session we went to on preserving farmland in Wake County. Wake County, as many of you know, is one of the fastest growing counties, and they are rapidly losing farmland, and they have implemented a program with voluntary agriculture districts, elevated voluntary agriculture districts, as well as conservation easements to preserve farmland. Those are lessons that we can learn a lot about here in Currituck County, and it is my hope in our retreat in October that we can discuss this and possibly implement some of these to preserve our farmland that is also declining quickly here in Currituck County. And the last one that I went to is on helping our veterans. We saw an incredible documentary that the NCACC produced called The Veterans Battlefield. And it was a hard look at how veterans struggle. One of the sessions that I attended was on veteran service officers. I know Commissioner Beaumont brought this to our attention about a year and a half ago. But after that session and networking with our fellow commissioners from Camden County, it's my hope that we can work through that and bring some assistance to our veterans to help them live the best life that they can live. I will agree with Kitty. It was, I came back very energized, and I hope to keep these three things on the front burner, and I thank this board for the opportunity to do that.
Thank you. Paul?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The one item that I wanted to mention coming up October 7th is the Currituck Aviation and Planes and Plows, first annual event, if I'm got my dates correct. I believe that's correct. So that'll be October 7th from 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. And It's going to be a combination of basically the farming industry, demonstrations with that. There'll be a tractor parade, and then we'll have the aviation displays and demonstration flights. So I can tell you that for a county our size, William did an amazing job last year. For those that are big warbird fans, there's going to be at least 2 birds there. And, you can walk around them, look at them, talk to the pilots. And then the forestry department will typically have their air tractors if they're not out fighting fires somewhere. So it's a great time. Plane rides for little kids that have never been up in a plane. It's top notch. So I would encourage our community to come out because it is a lot of fun. That's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
It is October 7th, 10 to 3.
Signed
Thank
on
you.
up to volunteer.
Yeah.
I was not at the last meeting. I broke my perfect attendance record in 8 years of missing a meeting. We had a family event that my kids had planned for their mother, and they didn't know how to commissioners meet, so I apologize for missing because I did have perfect attendance. But I was not going to miss that because I would have heard some more stuff
You
probably at
would've
the house too, so.
You would have had perfect.
Yeah, I would have perfect, yeah. I'll rip the Band-Aid off. I'm not afraid. Everybody's gonna get one of these in the mail. It's your tax bill. Like I said, and some people aren't gonna be happy with it. I mean, taxes went up. Inflation's killing everything. So you go buy groceries, you're gonna pay more. You pay taxes, you're gonna pay more. Mine went up too, just like everybody else's. And we had to vote for it. Because when you dial 911, I want an ambulance to respond to that house. When you dial 911, I want a deputy to respond to that house. So it's not easy decisions that go on between these 7 up here, and we argue sometimes about stuff, and it is what it is. I still think we live in one of the greatest counties out of 100 in the state of North Carolina. I always will stand by that. One thing on ours, we have no municipalities to back. 2 out of 100 don't have municipalities. So, like I said, when you look at your tax bill, all 7 of us here, our taxes went up too. They went up across the state pretty much everywhere. I'll still stand behind the amenities that we have in the county. And like I said, it's, nobody wants to pay taxes. I don't want to pay taxes, but it's life, And if somebody thinks they can do better, it's $144, and you better have some thick skin to sit in one of these seats. So it's a challenge. This is my last term. I have 3 more years in it, and unless I drink some Kool-Aid, I don't plan on running again. But like I said, I do take it. I was perfect attendance till the last meeting. All right, for good stuff. School's back in session. Dr. Lutz is sitting over there, you and your staff. We have SROs in every school. That's something that costs money, and I feel it's very important and safe to have kids safe, to have teachers safe, to have principals safe, and anybody in the school safe, because the world's a crazy place. I mean, you just cut the news on, and it's on there every day. So day 1, I was at Charborough Elementary as the SRO. And it was awesome to see the little kids coming in there smiling, moms and dads and parents, and I mean, not to say this, people, they're like, "You're here all day?" I'm like, "Yes, we're here all day." So there's an SRO at every school for the safety of your kids, and those kind of things cost money. I mean, look at the mass shootings that we have, and I pray to God that we never have something like that here in Currituck, and we try to be aggressive and make sure we have proper things in place to make sure everything is safe. So I'm thankful for that, and like I said, it's, you'll have an SRO at every school in the county, which is unfortunately in the world today, you need it. Positives. The 21st of October is Community Night Out. It's at the high school and it's at the Currituck Middle School. The sheriff's office, we put it on. National Night Out for law enforcement is in August. It's also like the hottest time, like a day like today, like Commissioner Payment said. So we do ours in October. There'll be tons of free stuff, free, no charge, unless you want to eat food. There's some food vendors out there that you would have to pay for. But our National Night Out is October 25th from 5 to 8. We have bounce houses. We have obstacle course bounce houses. We have all kinds of great things for the kids to see and do. Vendors in the community, so please attend. It's free unless you want to buy food. So Christmas parade. I've had 3 emails in the last couple days that people trying to sign up for the Christmas parade. I was like, this is crazy. But 99 degrees outside and people are trying to sign up for the Christmas parade. But the Christmas parade is the 1st of December. I'm in charge of that. That's a fun event, and with myself and the extension, Sheila Gregory and a couple of the other staff over there, Cameron's people are awesome. We put on a really top-notch Christmas parade. So, and it's getting better every year. We're adding stuff, and William, as he stated earlier, is helping us this year. We're going to have to use the airport runway, not shutting the airport down, but have to use the runway a little bit more because it just keeps growing every year. So, and that's a free event for the citizens of the county, and that's really nice. So, lots of good stuff going on. Drive safe on the roads. We have lots of wrecks. People are distracted driving, whatever reason. The school zones, if you want a school zone ticket, it's $440. $250, if somebody gets that, does go back to our schools. So if you want to donate, I don't think that's the right way to donate because your insurance is going to go up. But like I said, be careful in the school zones. School did an awesome job the first couple weeks. I mean, we had the hurricane weather come up, but like I said, we live in a great place. Like I said, when you open your tax bill, all 7 of ours went up too. I don't want to pay it. Nobody does. But if somebody thinks they can do better, it's $144 for this job. That's what you have to pay to file and be prepared to be attacked and accused of being on the take or whatever. I told somebody the other day, if I'm on the take, I've worked 96 hours the last 3 weeks. I've documented. If I'm on the take, I'm really bad at it. So, that being said, like I said, we live in a great place, and, you know, it is what it is. So, like I said, just sit down when you open your tax bill, because when I looked at mine, I was like, ouch. But, you know, I mean, it's broke down. I do appreciate the county staff did a great job. So if you want to know what, and you can't pick and choose if I don't want to pay for this or whatever, it's broke down to where every dollar goes, which I really think that was awesome that we did that, because I've had like 7 phone calls a day about different stuff of why do we pay, and I'm like, that's, you know. So I think that was very thorough to explain to the citizens, because we do care about the citizens in the county. So, but that's it for me. But don't miss community night, the 21st. It's free unless you want to eat food. So,
All right.
thank you.
Thank you, Kevin. Owen, anything on your mind this evening?
I don't know what else I could say.
It's tough to follow that one, man. It's tough.
I did hear an interesting thing this morning. They said today is the happiest days in a lot of mothers' lives because the children went back to school. The saddest day is when school's out and they're back in for the summer. But no, I attended the association meeting, and I congratulate Kitty and look forward to her service on that Blue Ribbon Commission. I attended that session where they talked about it, and I think we have a pretty good election system in North Carolina, and as it was said, volunteer, and there's going to be more opportunities this year for people to observe at the polls and be part of the process that goes on. I was surprised when they asked at one of the general sessions for anybody that had served 20 years to come forward and get a pin, and I got a pin for 20 years of service, and I felt honored being up there with people that I looked up to. And that's the main thing about going to these meetings that I have enjoyed over the years, is you get to talk to other county commissioners around the state, and you ask them, have you ever seen this issue? Or if you have, how do you handle it? So you can get ideas on how other counties are handling situations, because the issues that occur here in Currituck County are not just germane to Currituck County. They're all over this state, because we are a Dillon Rule state, and we all have to bow at the altar of the General Assembly, I'll say, with all due respect. But, you know, we can't do anything unless the General Assembly tells us we can do it. And that's the main thing that people don't understand, that we don't have the authority unless it's specifically outlined in statute of what we can do. And with that, Mr. Chairman, I'm short.
All right. Thank you, sir. We'll comment on public comment tonight. It was brought up about $1.5 million in our agenda tonight for windows here, and can we do it later? And it's been put off for a very long time. These windows are actually rotting. The window frames are rotting, so we have some structural issues. And of course, this building is very, very old. So it is not just a simple matter of replacing with renewal by Anderson. It is a big deal to replace the windows here. And so we budget for that, and it may be less, it may be more. Hopefully it comes out less. We won't know till we open this place up and see what's in it. But we have mold issues in this building, so we have to do that. The further we delay, the more expensive it gets. As Kevin said, we debated a lot up here about having to implement a different tax rate this year and increase our taxes. We've talked about it probably ad nauseum, but 4% of that is just inflationary, just to get back to zero. We had another 4% in there for a new school, which we had to build. We added the SROs. We were able to do that with a minor increase and quite a bit of other things that are vital and necessary to keeping this county alive, well, and running. So we run a very slim budget and do what we can and save where we can and try to keep the tax rate as low as we can. A fall meeting was mentioned as well, October. The board meets usually for retreat purposes, and that's a bit of a misnomer because we don't run away anywhere. We do that right here in this room, generally speaking. James Mims has been to some of our meetings. We're going to do a fall planning session over a couple days to the board. You'll get an email shortly from the staff. We're looking at October 4th, 5th, and 6th, somewhere in that time frame to sit down and go through stuff for next year, and then we'll go into our regular budgeting retreat over the winter as we normally do. And I passed one of those voluntary ag district signs this weekend traveling back across the state, so I actually happened to notice that. It's interesting that you mentioned it. That's it for me this evening, and with that, I'll turn it over to our county manager.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just want to announce that it's been a long time coming, but it looks like a new fuel farm at the airport is soon to be reality. We just received notice last week that the North Carolina Board of Transportation has awarded the county $1,123,000 to be matched by the county's $124,000 for that project. So we look forward to successful bids on that project and get much-needed replacement to our fuel farm. That's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
I'm sorry, could you clarify, so that was a grant?
Yes.
And how did we participate, how were we advised to participate in that grant?
That's part of the North Carolina Division of Aviation. We were constantly in contact and communication with that Division of Aviation, and they provide opportunities through federal funds and some state funding to local airports for construction and other improvement projects. So we constantly have in the hopper projects that we want to see constructed, and are always looking for revenue opportunities coming out of the Division of Aviation for that.
Can I, County Manager, with the, now when you say new fuel farm, is that the fuel farm where county vehicles fuel up?
No,
This
this
is
is
aviation.
this
Oh, I was getting
aviation.
excited because it took me like 4 times today to get the fuel to work to my vehicle
And-
for the patrol car.
And I guess the point I was driving at is North Carolina has been, the state has been extremely supportive of Currituck County and our airport. And we've had, I want to say the Secretary of Transportation came in one time and said this was one of the nicest airports and facilities she, right? Had ever seen, right? And so, that's a testament to, some of the foresight but the projects that we've had, we've gotten millions and millions of dollars from state funds to benefit the airport. And we have millions and millions of dollars that we are still asking for.
Yes.
So some of the other projects include runway.
Well, there's
Expansion.
Strengthening.
runway extension. We're looking for money eventually to strengthen
Right.
the runway, some additional apron area. We actually are undergoing a new airport layout plan process right now, which will ultimately come into the Board of Commissioners for presentation. But that includes additional corporate hangars and T-hangars for smaller civilian aircraft. So we have a nice plan that we'll be working toward over the next 10 to 20 years, but looking for our partners at the state to help us fund those projects.
Like you said, in the airport too, it used to always be a liability on the county. Now it's an asset and it's getting used. It's a huge amenity to the county. And I mean, like, what was it? 3 weeks ago, Jamie Johnson, country singer, legend, flew into our airport to go to Morris Farms and participate in a show. So, I mean, there's some heavy hitters that come to our airport.
Yeah, it's surprising the types of the people that come through our airport, going to Corolla or to the Dare County beaches, and the types of aircraft that are coming in. William Nelson, our airport director, just surprises me all the time with the type of impressive and large aircraft that are coming in and out of there now. And
Massive.
to your point, the airport is producing revenue now rather than being in the red. It is in the black and doing well as an operation.
Okay. All right, thank you very much. Ms. Megan, anything for you this evening?
No report.
All right, thank you. All right. Next up is our administrative reports. We have a Cox Communication presentation. We have someone here from Cox? Oh, there you are. Hiding back there. How are you this evening?
Great. How are you? Good evening.
All right, good evening. Welcome.
Thank you. Good evening, Chairman White. Good evening, Vice Chair Jarvis. Good evening, commissioners, County Manager Ike. I'm trying to get the names. Megan, members of the public, and people who are virtual. My name is Neka Chiazor. I am the Market Vice President for Cox Communications based out of Hampton Roads and soon to be in Currituck County. And I also want to extend a thanks to Commissioner Owen Etheridge for coming up with this really pleasant idea of having us at Cox introduce ourselves to you all today. I did prepare a short presentation. I don't know if that presentation is available. If it's not, I can talk. I did prepare a short presentation to share with you all today. Here it is. Can you see it? Awesome.
Just clap your hands when you want to move to the next screen.
Okay. I was going to say, this is that would be a different type of technology. But I did want to use this opportunity briefly to share with you all who we are as Cox, what we're doing in Currituck County, and our hope to also is how we can work together. And so with that, I'll start off, let's see. You know, I work in communications, and sometimes, let's see, here we go. Our mission at Cox is to connect people to the things and to the people that they love and care about the most. My favorite saying about Cox is our mission is to build a better future for the next generation. And our company was founded by someone who's very similar to all of you distinguished commissioners. Our company was founded by James M. Cox, who was a governor of the state of Ohio for 3 terms. I heard you loud and clear, Commissioner McCord, about being in the seat. He was in the seat for 3 terms in a row. And he had this vision of sharing information with the world and proceeded to start in the newspaper business. He purchased the Dayton Daily in Ohio. And later on, that eventually evolved into becoming a media company, which became a broadband company, which I'm proud to say today is the largest privately held broadband company in America. We're currently being led at the company by Alex Taylor, who is the 4th generation descendant of Governor James M. Cox. And under the umbrella of Cox Enterprises, we have different facets of business. So we have Cox Communications, which is the division that I sit in. We have Cox Automotive, which has brands that some of you might be familiar with, such as Mannheim, Kelley Blue Book, Auto Trader. And we also have a division called New Growth. Last but not least, Cox, we pride ourselves on being sustainable because, again, as I mentioned earlier, one of our big things is building a better future for the next generation. And in order to build that better future, we recognize the environment is part of that. And so I'm here today to speak to you about who we are as Cox Communications. We've invested $16 billion in our network over the past 10 years. We currently offer residential services, commercial services, as well as advertising services. We have 12 to 18 months is our lead time in terms of demand planning. We have 28,000 neighborhood nodes nationwide. And what that means is you might see green pedestals out and about in the neighborhood. Those pedestals are what we call nodes, and they serve several communities. We have those. 99% of our nodes perform very well amidst increased use, and we saw that during the pandemic. As a matter of fact, one of the reasons why I'm here today is because we recognized that during the pandemic, there were so many folks who wanted to get on, but couldn't get on. And that led us to make a pledge to the government called Keeping Americans Connected, where we said at Cox we would do our darndest to make sure whoever wanted access to the internet that was close to where we serve would actually get access. So Cox and Hampton Roads, we've been serving that region for more than 45 years. Our network there extends to more than 14,000 miles in plant, and that goes all the way from a little south of Richmond, a place called New Kent County, all the way to northeastern North Carolina, now Moyock. We have about 400,000 residential customers throughout the region. We've done 1.6 in charitable giving, and the causes that are near and dear to our heart involve youth, education, and technology. We offer gigabit speeds with a goal of 10 gigabit, and we also now offer mobile services. So Cox is in the mobile business. We offer mobile services to our Cox customers, and we also offer media and advertising services. So, as I like to say, there are a number of political ads. We are very happy when it's political season because we love that advertising business. In North Carolina, you might see a picture of me there with some of my colleagues at Pass the Salt, which is not too far from here. We do have a presence here as well. So we've been serving residents in Knott's Island for more than 20 years. We also have several other assets in the state of North Carolina. For example, Bright Farms. Bright Farms is another company that we own. They produce salad. I'm sure you're familiar with them. And their facility is in Herndonsville. We also have a Mannheim that operates in Kenly, in Charlotte, in Wilmington. We have a cloud company called Rapid Scale that's in Raleigh. And what's not on the slide is another company that we recently acquired called Segra that offers commercial fiber services that's also in Raleigh. Needless to say, our journey in North Carolina is not a short one. When we enter into partnerships, we enter into it for the long haul. But I just wanted to give you some perspective as to what we're currently doing in the state. Moving on to Moyock, and I'm going to invite one of my colleagues here to come up in a second. We began construction in Moyock in June 2023. And as I mentioned earlier, one of the reasons why we looked at Moyock is we decided to take a concentrated effort to look not just in the state of Virginia, but across Virginia, look at North Carolina, and honestly to look at a number of states across the United States to see where can we actually help ensure that we can keep Americans connected. And so Moyock came on the map, and right now we're working really hard to reach more than 1,600 homes here. Construction is well underway, and the first set of homes will be available for full service beginning in the fall, pretty soon. And I know the question people often ask is, okay, when is this coming to my neighborhood? And so I'd like to invite Robin Parker. She's one of the best and brightest in our company. For those of you who might not be familiar with the broadband space, it's very rare for you to meet a woman in technology. There are not that many of us. It's even rarer for you to meet a woman who's in technology and is in construction. So with that, I'd like to bring up Robin to talk to you about the progress we're making on the construction front. Robin?
Thank you. Good evening. I'm Robin Parker. Pleased to be here and have a chance to meet you. So we started construction, as NECA said, in June. The area that we're building in Moyock right now is broken into 5 segments. A good bit of Tulls Creek Road up to Old Jury Road is part of that, and then down Currituck Highway to around Puddin Ridge. So anything north of that to the state line are the areas that we're currently focused on. The first segment is due to come online the end of September. The construction has gone very well. We've gotten great support from Dominion in getting pole permits established, and North Carolina DOT and getting the permits that we need from them to be able to operate on the roads. We've started construction in several of the neighborhoods. The slide that's showing right now are just some examples of the steps that go into building these neighborhoods. Our main plant will be along the major roadways, but then we'll branch off into the neighborhoods. And the first thing that residents will see are marks on the ground where our crews have gone in and identified where the pedestals or vaults will need to be placed. And there'll be a white line on the ground so that, and the North Carolina 811 positive response locators can then come in and mark whatever utilities are in the easement. After that's done, our crews go in and they will start potholing to verify where the location of those utilities are, make sure we know where they are placed where they were marked, and what the depth of them is before we go in and start doing the conduit installation. As you can see in step 3, those are some of the examples of the equipment that is being used. The majority of the work we're doing is being done with a horizontal directional drill, which it makes cleanup a lot neater. We're not going through with a ditch witch and trenching and tearing everybody's yards up. So far, we've had very good response from everybody. The work we've done looks well. The structures that are going in are represented in step 4. There are some pedestals being installed and then also some vaults of various sizes. The majority of them are 17 by 30 inches. The pedestals are about 12 by 12 and stand approximately 32 inches high. In the next step, you'll see the fiber optic equipment, which is housed in the pedestals, and that's the reason for the size of those pedestals. And then the final step is restoration. This is a home out in Creekside where we've already completed the installation and all of the splicing. The cleanup, you can't even tell that they've been there. So we just wanted to be able to share with you what some of that looks like now. The next slide is a representation of the areas that we're going to be working in. The kind of teal color that's identified as Q3 2023 is the segment that will be turned up first. That's along Shingle Landing Road and involves a few subdivisions. The next one that should be coming online is the green area, which is up Crossing Avenue, Arrowhead Avenue, Baxter Lane, and then the blue section is down Tulse Creek toward Old Jury Road. That should all be online, we're anticipating, before the end of the year. And then moving into 2024, what we're working right now to get permits for is in the purple section, Quail Run and the neighborhoods back there. And then the final segment will be the area shown in red, which encompasses mostly, there are some neighborhoods through there, North Point and Countryside Estates, and then the rest of that is primarily commercial, as you're aware. This slide, I'll let you take over.
Sure.
Go ahead.
Absolutely. So here, this is one of the announcements that we've put on our website, right? Cox Fiber is coming to Moyoc, and this is part of our process. We're trying to ensure that, one, the public is aware that we're coming. We want to be part of the community. We want to be really good partners. And as well, we also want to be open to receiving questions. So coming soon to Moyoc is fiber. We're also looking at other ways that we can expand beyond what we have currently shown you today. And so one of the many things that we have done so far is we've responded. North Carolina State put out an RFP. They were looking for proposals regarding broadband expansion across the state, and we responded to it. For competitive reasons, we can't get into the depth at which we responded, but I can say actually that there are some spots that have been identified in Currituck County. So there is that. We're also looking at how can we partner with rural electric co-ops. So you might be wondering, why is she bringing up rural co-ops? Well, there's one in particular, and I might butcher their name. I believe they're called Albemarle Rural Electric Co-op. And they tend to have a jurisdiction that's close to Currituck County. We understand that they have several residents or constituents who are in Currituck County that might be underserved or unserved, meaning they have less than 100 megabits per second in broadband. We believe that we would be a great partner for them in helping Currituck County provide fiber to those folks who don't have. So again, more to come on that, but we wanted at least to start the conversation here with you all to let you know that we're coming. Fiber is coming to Currituck County. We're happy to partner with you all and be part of the long-term solution. And if you have any questions or comments, let us know. I've talked to you all about the services that we offer. This is just a quick refresher. We provide internet, mobile, video, and home automation. And last but not least, we also provide low-cost internet options. I heard you all loud and clear when you talked about inflation. We recognize too that inflation affects everyone. And one of the things that we don't want to see is children not being able to do their homework because they don't have a broadband connection, or seniors not being able to take advantage of telehealth because they don't have a broadband connection. So there are two ways that we're trying to address this inflationary pressure. One, our flagship program called Connect to Compete, and it's just that. It's $9.95 a month, and it gives families a chance to compete online with internet access of 100 megabits or more per month. It's a great program. It's aimed at families. The other is Connect Assist, $30 a month, that's aimed at seniors. We have a third program called ACP, Affordable Connectivity Program, that we do in partnership with the federal government. And depending on the qualification levels, at times it results in absolutely free service. And so again, these are the low-cost internet options that we're offering to customers today to ensure that they stay connected and they stay on the digital highway. Thank you all so much for your time. It has been my pleasure to speak to you all today. It is, again, our mission at Cox to build a better future for the next generation, and that includes the folks at Currituck County. We hope that we'll be before you again not too long, but if you do have any questions or comments, my name is Neka Chiazor. I will definitely leave a card. Please feel free to let me know. Thank you.
Well, I think we'll ask you maybe one before you get out of here.
Sure.
So Paul reaching over, you have something on your mind this evening?
I do. So the challenge with most rural communities is, customers, ROI, density lines, and I'm blessed to live in one of the more rural areas of the county. I'm also cursed at living in one of the more rural areas of the county. And so when I look at, and a former county manager made the comment a long time ago that we got to get out of the wired paradigm, and especially with a county like ours. So there's areas that certainly, fiber would be awesome, gigabit speed would be ridiculous, but I'd love better than DSL, because that's all I can hope for where I'm at in any kind of a conventional wired system. So are you looking at wireless technologies as some kind of, regional system, put them on towers, et cetera, because that's really what's necessary in Currituck. And it's great that Moyoc will be wired. That's awesome, because they already had great internet as it was. The rest of us are still, well, Kevin still uses carrier pigeons, but dial-up.
Yeah, the answer to your question is yes. We're looking at both technologies. So right now, Rocky Mount is an example, and it's really, really rocky. We're able to, no pun intended, we're able to get fiber in there. We're also looking at a wireless play. There's a technology called fixed wireless access that we're starting to explore how to leverage. Although I will say that the bandwidth that you get over fixed fiber is still higher than what you get over fixed wireless access. But to answer your question about being in a rural area, we, not just us, I believe the feds actually recognize the challenges that providers were facing in getting to rural areas, which is why they made these funds available. The funding program is called BEAD, Broadband Equity Allocation Deployment, Broadband Equity Access Deployment. It's a $42 billion fund. North Carolina was allotted $1.5 billion of that fund, of which rural areas or people who are unserved or underserved, sounds like you might be in that category, will have funds to be able to deploy and build out either with wireless or with fiber.
The problem with that in Currituck County, just as background, is we're a tier 3. We're a tier 3 county, which means we're not eligible for just about anything. So unless a corporation makes an investment in our community, because we are precluded from getting into that business as a county. So we're relying on our civilian partners or commercial partners to come in and step up their game and come in and support us. Clearly, I'm very familiar with Cox, and it would be exciting to see them come down and above and beyond just the fiber, in other words, going to the wireless system, because it's not going to be, there will be no ROI on running, fiber down to my house. I would hope. What would we possibly do that would pay that off? Anyway, the point being, we are going to need as a county something above and beyond that. So I'm glad to see us here or see you down here, because certainly our folks deserve other options than what we've had to live with so far. Thank you.
Anything else?
I just want to say, glad you guys are here. I know I've experienced Knott's Island with using Cox for, anybody in the audience if they live in Knott's Island. So like I said, it's another asset to the county to have y'all here. It's another option besides MediaCom and CenturyLink. Now we have Cox. So appreciate y'all being here.
Thank you.
I will say that I did attend a meeting with the group from Cox. I think it was back in July, and it was very exciting to hear what their plans are, and I think you're going to see them march south as they open up new opportunities for Currituck County. So thank you for your presentation this evening. It's good to see you again.
Good to see you too. Thank you.
All right. Well, thank you for coming out this evening. We appreciate your time.
All right, thank you. Anytime.
Thank you. Have a good evening.
You too.
All right. Next up is public hearings, and it's time for me and myself and Kevin to get out of here and hand the meeting over to Vice Chair Commissioner Jarvis.
Three of you.
Three of us.
You, yourself, and Kevin.
And Kevin?
Yeah, exactly.
Selena,
I don't need that.
Thor's hammer.
The first public hearing is PB 87-19, Buck Island PUD, Galassa Holdings LLC is requesting an amended sketch plan, special use permit to add 2 dwelling units, density to parcel Y in Buck Island, Timbuktu, and B, requesting preliminary plat, special use permit for creation of parcel Y. The property is located at 804 Ocean Trail, tax map 116D, parcel 3B, Poplar Branch Beach Township. Thank you.
It's Cox Cable Day. That's what we wanted to say.
And this item is still open. The public comment section is closed, but the evidentiary part of the public hearing is still open. I would ask Director Kemp if you would just give us a quick recap.
Yeah, thank you, Vice Chairman. So just to recap real quickly, what this is, it's a commercial development with a commercial element on the ground floor and 2 dwelling units above. There are 2 actions required by this board. The first is to amend the sketch plan special use permit to approve 2 additional units of density. And the second action is a preliminary plat special use permit to establish parcel Y as a legal lot. Just to remind you, when we were going through the process, there were some questions as to whether that lot were created legally. So this cleans it up and ensures that it is. Real briefly, it's located right on 12, right across from Monterey Plaza. Here's a zoomed up. It is 0.44 acres. It is part of a PUD, as is the surrounding area, except the area to the west, which is single-family Outer Banks. Here is the amended sketch plan for Buck Island. You can see the subject property there highlighted in blue. This is just a summary of the request as well as the Buck Island PUD. So currently it has 121 dwelling units with a density of 1.765. The 2 additional units will only increase the density 1.795, so very, very small. the UDO provision allows up to 3, so it is well within the density requirements, as well as meeting the commercial allocation, which will remain at 12.23% because this site is already designated commercial. Additionally, the open space does not change, and it meets the UDO provisions. As far as the conceptual site plan, the proposed building meets the required setbacks. It meets the maximum lot coverage of 65%. 11 parking spaces are provided and adequate. There has been a preliminary stormwater plan, and NCDOT request a right-in, right-out from the site due to the location and right where there is a turn lane. And if anyone's been there, you know, that is a very dense part with a lot of commercial and a lot of traffic. So a right in, right out is definitely recommended. Yes, sir.
Question on parking spaces. So they're talking 2 residential units upstairs,
Yes.
and I know a lot of this isn't set yet. Do we know how many bedrooms each of those units is going to have?
We do not, no.
Okay, because isn't our guideline 2 parking spots per bedroom or per?
Yes, and we might actually, I could,
It's a half a space per dwelling unit for an upper story
And-
dwelling unit.
and do we know how many, have they told us how many dwelling units? 2 dwelling units.
Half
so
a
half
space
half a
per?
space with 2.
That's the ordinance requirement.
Okay.
Here is just a view of the preliminary building design. This talks to the preliminary plat, as I said, recording parcel Y, making it a legitimate parcel. The parcel is 0.44 acres. It meets the UDO provision, which is a minimum of 10,000 square feet. It also meets the lot width. This one is 276 feet. The minimum is 65. The lot will be serviced by county water and private sewer. TRC reviewed the request and provided these 3 comments. The applications are in conformance with the minimum UDO standards. As I mentioned, the driveway on NC 12 shall be restricted to a right-in, right-out, and a major site plan shall be approved prior to the commencement of development of the site. That's the next process. It is designated G3 in Imagine Currituck. This is a full-service designation. I won't read them all, but here are the applicable Imagine Currituck goals and policies that we reviewed with you last time. And I will leave you with these SUP review standards, the 4 standards, and I will stand by for any questions before we hear from the applicant.
Anyone have any questions of Mr. Kemp? Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Commissioners.
I will now call up the applicant and his team.
Thank you very much. Again, for the record, my name is Kraus Gray. I am a Currituck County resident, though I do have an office in Kilo Hills. Thank you for the opportunity to be back before you again to clarify some of the points. I would ask that our engineer make an initial presentation back to you again. And I have a handout that he has prepared. I might hand to you.
If you want to just hand it.
Thank you.
Okay, if you would give us your name.
Yes, ma'am. I'm John DeLucia. I'm a professional engineer. I work for Albemarle Associates, and I'm the engineer of record for the project. The last time that we were before you, there seemed to be a little bit of confusion on probably both of our parts. The parcel that we're talking about has already had a development on it once. It had a coffee shop on it. But when my client bought it, we were told that it needed to be cleaned up. So the subdivision part is really just a cleanup The parcel has a parcel ID. It's been being taxed. It's been developed before my client had bought it. So cleaning up the subdivision, if the staff wanted us to do that, we were happy to do that. As far as the development standards on the lot itself, it's the only thing we're asking for a special use permit for is to add the 2 additional dwelling units. If we weren't going for dwelling units upstairs, we could by right develop that lot just going through the technical review process. If the property was not in a PUD, by right, we could put retail downstairs and 1 apartment, just 1, above it. Because this is in a PUD that had a density, to add these 2 additional units is what we are really requesting, as well as cleaning up the subdivision, of course. What I have before you today is just a few things. The first couple of pages show the summary of use tables. Both retail and the apartment are shown as uses by right, zoning rights. The whole reason that my client wants to put the apartments upstairs is for workforce housing, Mr. Galassa has many pieces of property that he uses for workforce housing, and some of his commercial properties have had apartments built in them for their managers and folks like that. So when I look through the Imagine Currituck, I see on page 21 that new housing should be encouraged to take the range and forms in order to diversify the current housing stock. When we go to the community vision statement on page 42, workforce housing also shows up on that. When we look at page 61 of recommendations for economic development, encourage the development of diverse workforce housing for mixed incomes. And then when we actually go to the Corolla section of that, in the general use, or the general land uses, on page 88, it says encourage development of workforce housing for a viable community. There's a few other references that I'm not going to read them all. This really is about some workforce housing for my client to support the retail that will be downstairs. That's what we're really asking for, is the special use permit to add the 2 additional dwelling units into the Timbuktu and Buck Island's special use PUD. We had meetings with the community up there. There didn't seem to be anyone that had any real concerns or comments about it. We think it's a good use. We think it's actually in compliance with your wishes and your needs and your ordinances and your land use plan. Mr. Beaumont, as far as making it safe, we're going to design it to comply with the UDO. I remind you that the purpose of the UDO, this is out of your ordinance, you don't have this sheet. The purpose of the UDO is to protect the public health, safety, and general welfare of the citizens of Currituck County. So we'll be taking the site plan, subject to you all approving us getting a few more units there, through the technical review staff and through the county, and that's a pretty thorough review by your staff, I will tell you that. And all of us, our goal is to design developments that are in harmony with the community, that are needed. We're talking about a small 2,000 square foot retail shop here with some apartments above.
Do you have questions?
I do. So is this presented to us to address the will not endanger the public health and safety aspect? Is this what this was for?
No, sir. That was really to show that the county has been looking for workforce housing, and here's an opportunity where my client will benefit to have the workforce housing, obviously. If we were doing this on a general business parcel that was not in a PUD, you all wouldn't have even ever seen it. It would have gone straight to your technical review staff as a site plan. The reason that we're here is to ask for the 2 additional units be added to the
And just let me clarify, this is an evidentiary hearing, and I understand what you've told us, but to meet those review standards, we have to vote with evidence. So I would suggest that you relate to us how this packet stands as evidence, because that's what we're here for. We're here for an evidentiary hearing.
Yes, ma'am.
We understand that if, the big word, if you weren't asking, we understand the process, but you are asking, and because you're asking, you have to ask with evidence. So I think to Commissioner Payment's question, is this evidence? If so, what is this evidence of? Which of those 4 review standards are you standing on this as evidence?
If I might answer that.
That's fine.
He's the witness right now, but I think I can get to the point that the two of you are making.
Okay.
One of your requirements is to be in conformity with land use plan and other official adopted plan. What this is trying to demonstrate to you is your own other officially adopted plan is this information that we're providing to you and simply saying, what we're attempting to do is in conformity with your plan.
Which is review standard number 3.
Yes.
Okay.
But no, you all haven't said that.
I'm getting ready
Got
to
it.
say that.
Okay.
If I might.
We're here to help.
Yes, sir. You were, at the previous hearing, you were qualified as an expert witness, as an expert in design of plans, correct?
Yes, sir.
Right now, in your professional opinion, well, let me come at it this way. Let's look at the properties that are immediately adjacent to this tract. To the south of this tract is the Timbuktu Commercial Plaza, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
To the east is Highway 12, and then on the other side of that is the Monterey Shores Commercial Plaza.
Yes, sir.
To the north of this is the Buck Island Commercial Lot Number 1, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
All right. Then we have to the west, which is presently unimproved property, but it's part of the Monterey Shores subdivision.
I believe so, yes.
All right. So, given the surrounding properties, and given the fact that you are in the business of developing site plans, and included within that is the concept of designing what would be in harmony with the surrounding areas. Is that correct?
That's correct.
All right. Given those circumstances, if this is declared to be a lot, which is item number 1, actually they're in reverse order because the request apparently is to do the lot second, but doesn't matter. If this is declared to be a lot, would this lot be in harmony with the area in which it is located?
Yes.
All right, now, if these 2 units, residential units, are approved to be above the commercial in the PUD, would those 2 units be in harmony with the area within which they are located?
Yes.
All right. Now, and that is part of the standard that we have to provide to these people. The next is standard number 1. If this is approved to be a lot, would that endanger the public health or safety in your professional opinion?
No.
If these 2 residential units are approved by these commissioners, would that endanger the public health or safety, you as a professional in designing plans?
No, sir, it wouldn't.
That is my questioning of this witness.
Okay.
Can,
Sure.
Mr. DeLucia, do you consider the right in, right out to be part of protecting public safety?
Absolutely, Commissioner Evers. You know, developers don't like the right in and right out. It's more inconvenience. However, it is safer for the general public in how they move.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you.
We would ask our appraiser to, again, discuss the valuation information, simply based on, not simply based on, let me restate that. Mr. Beaumont asked some pertinent questions when we were here last time, and I asked the appraiser to address those issues, because they are valid issues that this board needs to hear. And again, he presented that.
Hello, everybody. I'll give him a minute. My name is Jason Self with Self Appraisal Services. I will give him a minute to hand out the handouts, if you don't mind. My name is Jason Self. I'm sorry, I do talk kind of quietly sometimes. So last time I was asked by Mr. Beaumont to present data from Corolla. I will say that when dealing with a mixed-use property, data is limited in Corolla, but I was able to find some information that I felt was relevant, and I did include that in the handout that you've received. It is my opinion that the use of this property as a mixed-use property, adding residential units, will be in harmony with the surrounding properties and will not adversely affect the property values of surrounding, abutting, adjoining properties. I have come to that conclusion by doing market research, finding sales that I feel are proximate to reasonably comparable land uses, and researching those sales to find out if they sold at or below market. All the sales I located sold at least at market. One of them actually sold above market, and while I don't think that necessarily has to do with the proximity to the neighboring property, it is something to mention. There are several studies that have been published that show that mixed-use properties can serve to increase property values in the neighborhood. And I have a lot of that information in the handout. If anybody has any questions, I'll be glad to answer them.
So just as a summary, because this is a lot of information to sit and try to digest in
It
a
is.
matter of minutes.
I apologize for that.
Out of the properties that you collected data and analyzed, how many of them actually increased in value with a mixed-use building going in?
I don't know that any of them increased in value because of being near a mixed-use or a commercial type property.
Decreased.
I didn't find any decreases in value because of it.
Okay.
So, if I may, in your opinion, the fact that this is being considered workforce housing for the business possibly underneath of it, that doesn't have an impact on any of the surrounding properties?
No, sir.
And it's going back to the old neighborhood type where the people lived above the place that they worked.
Sure. I feel it's actually a relatively low impact to the surrounding properties.
Anyone else have questions? Are we still trying to digest it?
So if I understand correctly, your comps are going back to 2015, or some of them are going back to 2015 and 2017?
I believe so, yes.
And as a professional appraiser, that's valid?
Can be, yes.
Is it valid?
It is, yes. If I'm giving current market value, then I need current comps, but I'm not giving current market value. I'm trying to find a cause and effect. So older data can be relevant. And sometimes you have to use older data. Even when I'm trying to find current market value, sometimes I have to use older value to find a cause and effect.
And and maybe you're in the wrong one, but how many, when we talk workforce housing, typically I think what was intent by the UDO was more than just the people over the shop. I think specifically the intent is, because you're net neutral, if I understand correctly, right? The only people that are going to be living upstairs are working in the shop below? You're probably not the one to answer that question.
I'm not the one to answer that question.
That's fine. So I would ask the applicant. I have nothing further for this one.
All right, thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
When you were here last time, I mentioned to you that that Ms. Volova was kind enough to forward to me information regarding your schools, because one of your requirements deals with the capacity issue. And I did not hand out that particular email to you. I'm going to hand it to this young lady with a request that she hand these out as well. This is just simply to show the data of the capacity of the schools that apparently will be serving anybody who goes to school from that area. That's all I'm trying to present through this. And it does appear to show that the southern schools have capacity and the northern schools, there's a problem. And that's the reason you get paid the big bucks to solve that problem.
We're working on it.
Wait a minute. I thought
Yes,
he was an
ma'am.
attorney.
Just as a recap, what we have presented to you is testimony that, and again, I want to break it into two components. One, a request that you approve this as a lot. As to that, it doesn't endanger the public health or safety if you do so. You've heard testimony will not injure the value of adjoining or abutting lands or be in harmony with the area in which it is, be in conformity with the land use plan and other official adopted plans, the other information we provided to you. And fourth, if you make it a lot, it will not exceed the county's ability to provide adequate public facilities, including but not limited to schools, fire, rescue, law enforcement. Now we go to the second prong of this, which is where we are requesting you to provide that we can put 2 apartments above the commercial space. As to that, you've heard testimony that doing so will not endanger the public health or safety, will not injure the value of adjoining properties, and will be in harmony with the area in which it is located. Clearly, this is in a commercial area. And be in conformity with the land use plan. Kemp himself indicated that that was the case in the earlier testimony he gave in the prior hearing. And then finally, that adding these 2 apartments will not exceed the county's ability to provide adequate public facilities, including not limited to schools. You have that data in front of you. Fire and rescue and law enforcement. I don't think adding 2 apartments is going to overwhelm your police department any further than what it already may be in that particular area during the middle of the summertime. So we respectfully request that you vote to approve the 2 prongs. 1, make this an official lot, and 2, approve the development plan, which will add 2 residential apartments above the commercial facility.
Thank you. Any more questions? Okay, thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
All right, any discussion? Or if no discussion is to be had, I will entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I move to approve PB 8719 Buck Island preliminary plat special use permit because the applicant has demonstrated the proposed use meets the review standards of the UDO.
Question, do we do that one first?
We can do,
What,
I think we can do them in either order, can we not?
Either order.
Okay.
James, didn't mean to interrupt you, I just wanted to make sure.
Now I got to remember where I was. Could you read back where I was? Okay, under the special use permit review standards, the use will not endanger the public health or safety. Proportionally, the burden to our sheriff's department, we're not a township, to our sheriff's department, to our fire EMS is minimal, and so consequently will pose no significant impact on our ability to provide public health or safety. Number two, based upon the testimony provided, it will not injure the value of adjoining or abutting lands, and will be in harmony with the area in which it is located. Number three, the use will be in conformity with the imagined Currituck 20 vision plan and other officially adopted plans, specifically the land use plan goal number 1, General Corolla Land Use Policy 1.7, Corolla G2 Policy 2.1 and 2.2, and finally, the use will not exceed the county's ability to provide adequate public facilities.
Second,
Could I, at the
Did you want to,
TRCs?
did you want to include the conditions from TRC?
I'm sorry, yes.
Which are found on page 6 of the,
Because it has
agenda packet?
DOTs, yep.
it's the applications are in conformance with the minimum UDO standards. The driveway on NC 12 shall be restricted
Right
to
in,
right
right
in.
out.
Yeah, and then a major site plan shall be approved prior to commencement of development of the site.
What she said.
Okay. All right,
second.
all right. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? All right, and I will now entertain a motion for the second part of this special use permit.
Well, Mr. Chairman, were there any TRC comments that need to be incorporated in that
The
one
same,
as well?
it's the same that
Okay,
are on
so,
page 6.
and I don't have that pulled up, but specifically, I move to approve PB 8719 Buck Island amended sketch plan, special use permit because the applicant has demonstrated the proposed use meets the review standards of the UDO. And the permit approval will also be with the TRC review comments as provided in the staff report and will be conditions of the approval, which should capture everything.
And I'll second Mr.
Wait,
Reynolds'
hold on.
motion.
Of the TRC comments. The recommended TRC comments will be incorporated, period. Which, right. Specifically, the use will not endanger the public's health or safety as previously, it's an incremental increase and will provide no significant impact to public health or safety. Use will not injure the value of the adjoining or abutting lands and will be in harmony with the area in which it is located, because specifically it's a lot. And then based upon the testimony provided, it will not be an adverse impact. Number 3, use will be in conformity with the imagined Currituck 20 vision plan, other officially adopted plans, and as previously mentioned, specifically, land use goal number 1, General Corolla Land Use Policy 1.7, Corolla G2 Policies 2.1, 2.2, and the use will not exceed the county's ability to provide adequate public facilities.
Now, I'll second it.
All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anybody opposed? All right. Thank you very much. We'll take a 10-minute recess and get ready for our next public hearing.
All right, I'll call the Board of Commissioners meeting back into order. Got through item 1 under public hearings this evening. Item 2, PB 23-21, Currituck County, request to amend the Unified Development Ordinance, Chapters 3, 6, and 10 to remove traditional subdivisions form of development from, say that a couple times, the agriculture and single-family residential mainland zoning districts to exclude 404 wetlands from residential density calculations, increase the minimum right-of-way width, and increase the front setback in the agriculture and SF single-family residential mainland zoning districts. Good evening, Kevin. We've talked
evening,
about this a couple
Chairman.
times. How are you tonight?
I'm doing well. How
All
are
right.
you?
Glad to hear it.
Good. All right. This is a text amendment. It's been directed by the board. If you'll remember, we had a few work sessions where we talked about lot size, density, and ways to approach that and control growth. Well, out of that work session, staff was directed to put together this text amendment. It includes 4 items. First is to remove traditional subdivisions as a development option in the AG and SFM districts. The second is to exclude 404 wetlands from residential density calculations. The third is to increase the minimum right-of-way width to 50 feet. And lastly, to increase the front setback in the AG and SFM districts to 50 feet. So this is part of item 1 and item 4. The first change is to the to the AG district. And what this does, a little difficult to see, but the traditional form of development is removed. You can see it is struck through. And then additionally, the setbacks here for the front and corner setbacks are changed from the existing setback of 20 feet to 50 feet. The next is, it's very similar, but it does the same thing to the SFM district. As you can see here, the traditional form of development is struck through. And in the conservation form of development, the front and corner setbacks are changed from the existing 20 feet to 50 feet. The rest of item 1, dealing with conservation subdivisions, impacts section 6.4, and this is the conservation subdivision standards. In this, what it does is makes conservation subdivision a requirement for all major site plans. The second item is to exclude 404 wetlands from the residential density calculations. This amends section 10.3.5, which are the definitions and measurements. Currently, the exemption is only for CAMA delineated wetlands. What this would do is add the exemption in for 404 wetlands, so it would no longer be counted towards the total area when you're calculating residential density. The third item, it deals with right-of-way widths. What this does is amends table 6.2.1D. It changes the right-of-way width from 30 feet to 50 feet in conservation subdivisions right here. And it adds a 50-foot minimum right-of-way requirement for residential subdivisions and non-residential subdivisions where currently there is none. We also put together a little cleanup and added a 20-foot minimum pavement width for collector streets so that it is consistent with local streets. Currently, there is no minimum pavement width. So those are the 4 items. Staff and Planning Board do find this consistent with the Imagine Currituck goals and policies, specifically Land Use Goal 1, which encourages development to occur at densities appropriate for their location. Environmental Goal 1, to ensure public services are sufficient to provide superior service for the growing population. Environmental Policy 1.1, which is to preserve coastal and non-coastal wetlands and riparian buffers. Environmental Goal 2, to encourage protection and preservation of prime agricultural lands. And lastly, Environmental Policy 3.1, to preserve riparian buffers. Staff has recommended approval of this text amendment. As I mentioned, the Planning Board heard this item and recommended approval by a 5-0 vote. And with that, I will stand by with any questions.
Any questions, comments from the
What
board?
was I know when we talked about the setbacks from the road,
Yes.
50 foot was Currituck on the Sound, I think, was the model that they had used, is that if I'm not mistaken. Is that correct?
Which-
The one that
which-
we used, I believe it was Currituck on the Sound for some of the photos that I was just trying to,
Yes, some of the photos that were displayed were Currituck from the Sound. They do have, most homes do have a 50-foot. I think a few might be in the high 40s, but that is a good example of a
I was
subdivision
just
with
trying
a
to remember which
50-foot
one we
front
used.
setback.
I thought it was that one.
Yes, you are correct.
Okay. Paul, anything from you? Owen, anything on your mind? Nice, you're clearing your voice up.
I have a question. When we had a work session on it, the conservation subdivision looked different for full service, limited service, and rural. Has that changed? Would it all be the same?
No, the conservation subdivision, the way that is in our ordinance, does not change. What this amendment does is it removes the traditional form of development so that everything is a conservation subdivision, which allows the flexibility to vary lot size and other dimensional standards to increase open space.
So for all three types of conservation subdivisions, there is a required, if it's 100 acres, there's a required 40 acres to be reserved, correct?
Yes, that does not change.
And the right-of-way is 10 acres.
Yes.
Okay, for all of those. So what's different between the full service, the limited service, and the rural is the lot size?
Yes, and the density you can get, but again, that doesn't change from what the ordinance currently says.
Okay. So mainly the difference, because the lot size on here is 25,000 square feet minimum, right?
Correct.
So what's different is the density, correct?
Yeah, the
For
lot
full
size is not changed with this proposal.
For the density for full service is .87 dwelling units per acre, right?
Yes, that is correct.
And then limited service is .75 dwelling units per acre?
Correct.
And then for the conservation, it's .33, am I right?
Yes,
So
you are correct.
none of that has changed with this, correct?
You are correct.
Okay.
And just for those that are listening, the fact that it's under 1 per acre means that the lot size will be above 1 acre per dwelling unit. So .87 still needs another .13 above 1 acre in order to get to the minimum requirements.
That is correct.
Excellent point, thank you. Okay. All right, if there's nothing further for Mr. Kemp, this is a public hearing. The public is allowed to voice their opinion or thoughts on this, and I have no one signed up this evening. Is there anyone who would like to speak to this tonight that's in the audience? All right, seeing none, I'll close the public comment. And if there's nothing further from the board, I'll open the floor for a motion.
Mr. Chair, I'll go ahead and make a motion to approve PB 2321 because the request is consistent with the image Currituck 2040 vision plan, including the land use goal 1, environmental goals 1 and 2, environmental policy 1.1 and 3.1.
I'll second that.
Thank you. Any further discussion from the board? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right, hearing none, it carries unanimously. Thank you. All right, next up, we have some glasses on so I can read this. PB 23-11, James Mims. Request to amend the Unified Development Ordinance, Chapters 1, 3, 4, 7, and 10 to change minimum lot sizes, density, and environmental protection sections. With that, Mr. Mims, you're going
Thank
to
you.
present, Kevin, and then we'll give you a chance to chime in, James. Sorry.
Yes, I will go through this text amendment. There
you.
is a lot to swallow with it, so I'm going to go through it piece by piece
Okay.
and show you what it entails. So this text amendment actually has 16 items, as you saw in the staff report. And the way we evaluated it is we just went through each of the items, evaluated it to the plans, to the goals, and gave a recommendation. But in sum, the text amendment addresses the following. It increases in minimum lot size to 45,000 square feet. It removes the MXR zoning district. It removes the CC zoning district. It does not allow for cluster-style development. It removes the density bonus for sustainable development practices. It does not include wetlands and open space calculations. It requires wetlands to be placed in a conservation easement. It does not permit fill in the wetlands. And lastly, it removes Currituck Station from the UDO. But if you will remember, the Board of Commissioners did pass that already, which voided that request. So the way I'm going about this is, of the 16 items, I grouped them kind of as a theme as to what they address, and this will make sense as we go. Items 1, 2, 3, 8, 9, 10, and 14 all deal with an increasing the minimum lot size to 45,000 square feet. Item 1 does this in the RC district, where it would increase from 40 to 45,000 square feet. Item 2 does this in the AG district, where it increases the minimum lot size from 30,000 to 45,000 square feet for conservation subdivisions, and from 40 to 45,000 square feet for minor subdivisions. Item 3 does something similar in the SFM district, where it increases the minimum lot size from 25 to 45,000 square feet in conservation subdivisions, and from 40,000 to 45,000 square feet for traditional subdivisions, which the traditional subdivision was removed in the last approved text amendment by the board. Item 8, it establishes a minimum lot size of 45,000 in the PDM district, where there is no established lot size minimum. 9, it changes the minimum lot size from 20 to 45,000 square feet for duplex dwellings. 10, it establishes a minimum lot size of 45,000 square feet for accessory dwellings. And lastly, item 14 increases the minimum lot size from 40 to 45,000 square feet for family subdivisions. So staff and planning board reviewed these items and recommend denial. We feel that it is more appropriate and consistent with Imagine Currituck to regulate growth by lowering allowable densities. The applicable goals and policies of the Imagine Currituck, which are listed on page 53 and 54 in more detail, are the vision statement, which real briefly says that the county maintains appropriate development densities, the guiding principles for economic prosperity and resilience, which is to provide a range of housing types, and the transect methodology, which is a key recommendation of the UDO, is to regulate growth through density, and then lastly, land use goal 1 and land use policy 1.5. So those are dealing with lot size. The next item, item 4, is to not allow any additional MXR district zone property in the county, essentially making the MXR district a legacy district. Staff and the planning board recommend denial of this request. We feel that there is a need for multiple housing types within the county, including multifamily development. MXR is the district that allows for that diversity. The applicable goals and policies of Imagine Currituck include Land Use Goal 1, Infrastructure and County Services Goal 5, and Infrastructure and County Services Policy 5.1. And the next two items, item 5 and 6, deal with the community center, the CC zoning district, and what this text amendment would be to remove the CC district as well as the sub-district specific design standards. So those two sections of the UDO would be removed.
So let me pause you there for a second. Why would you want to pull that? We have, I believe, one of those with
There are actually no properties zoned CC
okay.
in the county currently.
The Sampat was one of those. All right.
So
it's
staff
not being
and
utilized, basically.
right, it hasn't been utilized, and the request, is consistent with the recent direction to lower densities and to control development.
Okay.
So therefore, it was recommended for approval.
Question, would the community center, will a church fall under a community center?
Community center, I'm not sure off the top of my head if that's a permitted use, but a community center speaks more towards a node of denser development, an activity center type. The equivalent at the Outer Banks would be a village center, where you would see something like Monterey Shores Plaza, that sort of development, or Timbuktu. It speaks more towards that kind of development, a denser, multifamily mix of commercial, that type of use.
Okay.
All right, next we have item 7, and that is to not allow cluster developments within planned development districts. So what it does is, in the section where currently you can cluster homes and increase open space, what it would do is require all the lots to be evenly spaced out. Staff and Planning Board recommended denial, believing that cluster lots provides an opportunity to concentrate open space, reduce impervious surface, limit infrastructure, and allow for more creative design options. The applicable goals and policies of Imagine Currituck include Land Use Policy 1.4 and Economic Development Policy 2.1. The next item, item 11, removes the density bonus as one of the incentives for sustainable development practices. Staff and Planning Board actually recommended approval on this as it is consistent with the Board of Commissioners, the direction we've received to reduce development density. With that being said, this is just one of the incentives that can be used. There's still incentives for additional height of 1 story or 10 feet, a reduction in the parking requirement by 15%, an increase in sign area and height by 10%, and a reduction in open space by 10%. So there still are advantages to development that can be had by sustainable design practice. This would just remove density. It would not allow them to get that extra unit of density. Item 12 deals with the wetlands, and it's actually divided into 2 parts. The first is that the wetlands shall not be credited towards open space. The Staff and Planning Board recommend denial, as wetland areas are often used in open space for the enjoyment of all the property owners. If you think you could have some active or passive recreation in open space areas, that's common. The applicable goals and policies of Imagine Currituck include countywide land use development topics, land use compatibility. And this talks to preserving the rural character through preservation of water views, open space, farms and pastures, woodlands and forest, and wildlife habitat areas for hunting and fishing, and Parks and Recreation Policy 1.1. The second part of item 12 is that wetlands shall be required to be placed in a conservation easement. The staff does recommend, and Planning Board recommend, approval of this item, as conservation easements do allow for the protection of wetlands and environmentally sensitive areas. The applicable goals and policies include history of progress, present day, Economic Development Policy 2.1, and Parks and Recreation Policy 1.4. Item 13 regards fill permits, and it says that no permit shall be granted for any fill within wetlands areas. Staff and Planning Board recommended denial of this, and really there are instances where fill in wetlands is necessary, and staff recommends that this stay with the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers as far as the permitting agency. That's what our UDO requires now. And it has worked well, not adding another layer of regulation from the county on top of the U.S. Corps of Engineers. We feel that would be laborious and counterproductive. So applicable goals and policies of Imagine Currituck for this one are the SUN systems, page 29, which talks to the instances of non-coastal freshwater wetlands are extensive in Currituck County and are regulated by the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. So that is called out in our plan. Item 15 is to remove wetlands from residential density calculations, and this may sound familiar because you just voted on this in your last text amendment.
So one question that I have for both y'all, if we already did a text amendment, do we still need to vote on ones that we've already, for example, this one?
Yes.
Yes.
It's
Got it.
Of course.
Okay.
And then lastly, we discussed the removal of Currituck Station that this board has already done at their June 5th meeting. And those are the 16 items that this text amendment addresses. And I know that was a lot to bite off, so I will stand by for any questions.
I know we did that in June, but I don't see that on this sheet. I mean, if we had to vote for the other one, if we just voted for one, does it doesn't have to be on there?
What's that?
Where we removed Currituck Station from the UDO.
That was already voted on.
Decided, but we have to, basically we have to keep parts of this we want and get rid of the parts we don't.
got you.
Unless we want to do all of that, and then that would be
Okay.
redundant.
The point, based on my previous question, is we still need to vote on item 16.
Right. All
Yeah.
those items are included in the application.
Packet,
We just
right.
That's what I was asking.
noted where they've been addressed.
So we probably just need to, when we get to that point, pick this apart, items 1 through 14, then item 4, we'll just go through them individually.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's what this does.
Thank you.
Yep. Okay. Any other questions for Mr. Kemp on that data dump we just got? All
It
right.
was a lot.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Mr. Mims, come on up and see us this evening. Good evening, sir. Just before you jump in, I want to say thanks. I know you put a lot of time and effort in this, and just told me you're not feeling so well, so thanks for hanging out with us this evening and going through this with us. We appreciate your time.
Yeah, please excuse me. I'm not feeling exactly well tonight. I don't want to stand up here and waste our time. I think at this point we all see where I stand with the issues in this county. Time and time again, each of you look at social media and it disgusts you. People will always have something to complain about, but today Facebook brought itself here. I'm here with real solutions to real problems. Minimum 1 acre lot size is not the solution. Stopping the filling of wetlands across the county is not the answer. Changing the way we calculate density is not the answer. Doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result is not the answer. We must recognize the problem at hand and act on it. These solutions presented before you together and in harmony will slow growth. They will allow us to catch up on infrastructure, preserve what was once a truly rural community, and will allow that school that developers should have footed the bill for to be built before it's full. Just to add some local data to my claims, I submitted a FOIA request and recovered data that there have been 146 instances in the last 4 years that fill permits have been issued in our county. Of those 146, 24 of those have been issued for structures. So yes, wetlands are being filled for development. We just raised our taxes by over 20% and are expected to continue to see that rise in the future. We can continue to blame the state and their interference with our local government. We can blame the current administration and their disastrous domestic and foreign policies, or we can meet this head on with what each of you have stated has been much of the problem with growth right here in Currituck County. We must once and for all stop kicking the can down the road, modify the Unified Development Ordinance to the liking of the long-standing residents of this county, and end the unfettered growth. For those that state that this eliminates affordable housing in our county because it eliminates mixed-use residential, I encourage you to think about what was once truly affordable housing or a starter home in our community. When the Board of Commissioners some time ago decided to ban mobile homes and single wides, they essentially told our children to continue to their lives at home with mom and dad. Nobody can afford what is coming into the county, particularly Moyoc. If you want affordable housing, $350,000 townhomes are not the answer. A starter home is a single wide or a mobile home. Some notes from staffing previously on another date said that requiring a 1 acre minimum lot size and eliminating mixed-use residential will cause the housing development to not be marketable. I ask anyone in this room to name anything in this county, I don't care if it's a shed on a lot, that's not marketable. Roughly 150 citizens have signed a petition in support of this text amendment. And sure, I did fail to go door to door to ask each resident of this county if they would sign it. Let's be honest, though. At the end of the day, the residents of this county that grew up here, the ones that didn't grow up in HOAs, ones that had roosters in their backyards, ones that drove four-wheelers down their roads, that farmed with their parents on their residential land, are frustrated with what they're seeing today. They made this county what it is and what I'm fighting to maintain. Currituck County, the sportsman's paradise. I ask of your support, board, increase the minimum lot size for mainland residential districts to 45,000 square feet. Decrease the density maximum to 1 unit per 45,000 square feet for mainland residential districts. Prohibit including environmentally sensitive lands and lot area calculation for density. Require environmentally sensitive lands such as wetlands, water features, maritime forests, etc., to be placed into a conservation easement for perpetual protection. Prohibit future mixed-use residential district rezonings and make the MXR district a legacy district. Prohibit the concentration of lots. Prohibit all fill of wetlands. Remove stormwater management site amenities and water features from open space set-asides, and remove the density bonus of 1 unit per acre for using sustainable development practices. I appreciate each of you that have allowed me to speak, even when I probably shouldn't have. Thank you, staff, for your inputs and help throughout this journey. And lastly, thank you to each and every resident that made this possible today. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Do you guys have any questions, James?
I just have a comment to you. What we passed before with the density and the conservation subdivision, to me, is, I know you are focused on Moyoc, and I know that's where your people are, your tribe is. Down my way, we have a lot of people that resemble me. They're retirees. And my house sits on 3/4 of an acre, and it's all my husband and I can do to maintain that. 1 acre lots, as you have proposed, you got a lot of great things in here, and I look forward to approving a lot of your text amendment. But the 1 acre minimum is not feasible for people who look like me. For people that are young and usually healthy, like you, it is feasible. But for people down in lower Currituck, it's not feasible. And this text amendment would apply to the whole county. I've heard from a lot of people, a lot of my constituents, and they want to control growth, as I do. You and I have had that conversation. But I think what we just did is more feasible and more sustainable for density. And I thank you for the work you've put in, and I thank you for your passion as you've come before us.
Okay.
You said, were you referring to this board eliminated single-wide mobile homes?
I believe it was when I asked staff, I believe it was in 2013. I wasn't speaking specifically to
Single-wides were eliminated or prevented from happening in the mid-'80s with the land use update plan at that time, because I served on the planning board, and we were looking at the housing stock in Currituck County at that time at 44% were single-wide mobile homes. And the statewide average was 12%. I remember it very clearly. And the cry was from the citizens of Currituck County, we need to slow down the growth of single-wide mobile homes, and that's what happened in the mid-'80s. So it's not a phenomenon that was created by this board or in the last 20 years.
And like in more discussion, I don't feel that banning them is the answer, and maybe it needs to be revisited as to what the percentage currently lies to better assist the affordable housing problem that we have in the county.
And then
you can still put a single wide up on
in a trailer park, or if it's, you can still replace a trailer with a trailer. And I think if you have a trailer like in a main highway, you can replace that with a double wide right now, or modular home, I believe. You can still do that. That's still legal. You just can't go back with the trailer and trailer right now.
And you can put single wides as tenant houses.
Yes. So
there are some options.
You can still do some options out there.
But okay, James, again, thank you. I know you put a lot of work in.
Yes, you did. Thank you.
Okay, this is a public hearing. James signed up for public comment, and I think he said his piece this evening. Is there anyone else out there that would like to speak to this that did not sign up this evening? Seeing no one come forward, I will close the public comment and look to the board for action on this, or do we need to take a minute to think about how to structure this whole? You got
I'll
it?
do that. I'll go ahead with that motion.
All right.
Okay. I move to approve items 5 and 6 in PB 2311 James D. Mims III to repeal the community center zoning district as it will lower density, supported by the text amendment that the board passed to lower development density, and there is currently no property in the county with a zoning district. Repealing the CC district is consistent with Imagine Currituck, specifically the goals and policies, land use goal and policy 1, infrastructure and county services goal and policies 2, 3, 7.2, and 8. I move to approve item 11, removal of the density bonus of 1 unit per acre beyond the maximum allowed in the zoning district for integrating sustainable development practices. This request is consistent with the board's proposed text amendment, which encourages a decrease in density. Other types of bonuses would still be available by using sustainable practice. Removing the density bonus is consistent with Imagine Currituck, specifically the land use goal in policy 1, infrastructure and county services goal in policies 2, 3, 7.2, and 8. I move to approve the portion of item 12 requiring wetlands and other environmentally sensitive features in this section to be replaced in a conservation easement. I support allowing a percentage of stormwater management devices to be allowed in open space. Some developers use stormwater ponds to create walking trails, fishing, viewing, kayak launch platforms, etc., that are enjoyed by property owners. Requiring the listed environmentally sensitive features to be placed in a conservation easement is consistent with Imagine Currituck, specifically history of progress present day. Conservation is a citizen priority on both the mainland and the Outer Banks. Economic and development goal and policy 2.1. Parks and recreation goal and policy 1.4. I move to approve item 15, removal of 404 wetlands from density calculations. This request is consistent with the board's proposed text amendment, which encourages a decrease in density. This is consistent with Imagine Currituck goal and policy environment goal and policy 1.1, 3.1, and 4.5. And these items of this request are reasonable in the public interest because, 1, the items address the need recently expressed by the Board of Commissioners to decrease density in the mainland residential districts. 2, these items further protect environmentally sensitive lands by requiring a conservation easement.
We have a motion. Do we have a second? Second. Thank you. Any discussion? All in favor?
Do we not do the denial part?
Oh, sorry.
I thought we had to read that
Okay.
too.
Yep. Okay.
Yeah.
So you have to jump into denial?
Yeah.
Thank you.
And I move to deny 1, 2, 3, 8, 9, 10, and 14 of PB 2311 James D. Mims III because the request is not consistent with Imagine Currituck. It is more appropriate and consistent with Imagine Currituck to regulate growth by lowering allowable densities rather than increasing the minimum lot size. Additionally, this methodology grants the developer more design flexibility with subdivision layout while allowing a more market-driven product. Items 1, 2, 3, 8, 9, 10, and 14, because these items are inconsistent with Imagine Currituck, specifically the sections and goals of vision statement. The county maintains appropriate development densities and discourages encroachment into areas that impact natural assets. Guiding principles, economic prosperity and resilience, provide a range of housing types and land development densities appropriate for attracting quality, environmentally compatible business and industries that strengthen the county's tax base. Transect methodology. A key recommendation of the plan, Imagine Currituck, is an amendment of the UDO to regulate development density through an appropriate density average for each future land use transect. and land use goal and policies 1 and 1.5. I move to deny item 4, which is intended to not allow additional MXR properties zoned in the county. The MXR district is the only residential zoning that allows alternative housing living types such as duplexes, live-work dwelling units, multifamily dwellings, townhouses, and upper-story dwelling units. Many of the imagined Currituck transect profiles, G2, G3, and G4, encourage a variety of residential development that provide a variety of housing types. Some transects specifically identify multifamily development as being an appropriate land use. Not allowing additional MXR zone properties would be inconsistent with imagined Currituck, specifically the goals and policies, land use goal and policy 1, infrastructure and county service goal and policies 5 and 5.1. I move to deny item 7, not allowing the clustering of houses, clustering lots to provide the opportunity to concentrate open space in an area provides vistas for residents and conserves valuable wildlife habitat. According to the North Carolina State University, clustering lots reduces the amount of impervious surface, resulting in reduction of runoff and pollutant load. Additionally, it reduces infrastructure, including streets and utilities and facilities, more creative design options for the developer. Not allowing clustering of lots would be inconsistent with imagined Currituck, specifically land use goal and policy 1.4, economic development goal and policy 2.1. I move to deny the portion of item 12, not allowing wetlands and other environmentally sensitive features to be part of open space for the enjoyment of all property owners in the development. Not allowing environmentally sensitive areas to be placed in open space is inconsistent with imagined Currituck, specifically countywide land use development topics, land use compatibility, page 4, preserve rural character through preservation of water views, open space, farms and pastures, woodlands and forest and wildlife habitats for hunting and fishing, and Parks and Rec Goal and Policy 1.1. I move to deny item 13 regarding jurisdictional wetland fill, allowing properly permitted wetland fill situations such as road crossings at minimum. The appropriate agency, example U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, should remain responsible for regulating the fill of wetlands under their jurisdiction. Regulating wetland fill would be inconsistent with imagined Currituck statements listed below. Estuary systems, page 29, instances of non-coastal freshwater wetlands are extensive in Currituck County and are regulated by the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. And these items of this request are not reasonable and not in the public interest because regulating density by increasing lot size across the board in residential districts forces all buyers of new lots to purchase lots greater than an acre. Not all buyers want larger lots. It takes away from design flexibility and can increase sprawl, resulting in clustering lots as encouraged by, instead of clustering lots as encouraged by the UDO and Imagine Currituck. Not allowing additional MXR prohibits all forms of housing other than single-family and duplex dwellings. Not allowing the clustering of homes would create more sprawl development and prevent clustering of open space, increasing infrastructure and pervious cover, etc. Not allowing wetlands and other environmentally sensitive areas to be part of the open space to be enjoyed by all owners of the development would prohibit the recreational opportunities provided by those areas. And regulating the fill of wetlands that is already controlled by a federal agency, the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, could be challenged as an overreach of county authority.
So, Ms. Kitty, I think you had to rescind your second on the approval and maybe a second over.
With them combined, I'm not going to second it.
You're not going to second it with the combined? Okay.
I'll second it.
Thank you.
I have one question, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
So we're saying yay to, I wrote down the 5, 6, 11, 15, and half of 12, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
That's what was in her statement.
Okay.
Yep. Okay. Any other questions, comments, concerns? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Okay.
One no. Thank you. All right. You need a drink of water after that, Ms. Selena?
I think I do.
Good job.
All right. Next up, item 4, PB 23-22, Currituck County. A request to amend the Unified Development Ordinance, Chapters 2, 6, and 10, to define adequate public facilities ordinance as it relates to adequate school capacities and remove adequate public facilities reference from other public facilities. as always. Doing good. All right.
Thank you.
All right, Mr. Kevin, welcome back.
Thank you, Chairman. So this text amendment was initiated by this board. What it does is modify the adequate public facilities ordinance to consider schools and school capacity. There have been many discussions with the board that school capacity is a very tangible item. We have numerical data which can back up where in the capacity it is, and therefore evaluating adequate public facilities to school capacity is a known commodity and something that is easy to do. As the slide says, the school enrollment numbers are given to staff. We work with the school administration, and those are the numbers that we bring forward to evaluate capacity. What this amendment specifically does is changes two sections of the ordinance. The first is Section 246D, which are the special use permit review standards, and the second is Section 6.6, which is the adequate public facility standards. So this is the first change, and this is to the SUP review standards. And what it does is in Standard 4, it removes all facilities except schools, which includes fire and rescue, law enforcement, and other county facilities. All the other standards, as well as adequate public schools, remain in place. So the board is still able to consider the endangerment to public health and safety. It just does not specifically do that through adequate public facilities in item 4 for those that are struck through.
Could you take a second to expound on that a little bit? We and I talked about that earlier today, not that, I know the planning board kind of seemed to get hung up on that. So.
Right, and I'll jump ahead a little bit and say
Okay.
the planning board did recommend denial of this item. And the discussion at the planning board was really that they felt that removing these items from the adequate public facility from Standard 4 meant that these would not be considered in evaluating an application. It is not saying that these other facilities can't be considered. It's just removing it from that specific review standard. They can still and should still be considered, particularly in Standard 1, which speaks to public health and safety.
So let me ask this question then. So will EMS and the sheriff still be part of TRC then? Will they still be part of the review?
Absolutely.
Okay.
That does not change. What this really focuses on is that we don't have that tangible number which triggers the adequate public facilities for many of those facilities where we do for schools. They will absolutely still be part of TRC, and those comments will be relayed to the board. It just will not be a part of that fourth review standard.
So when you say there's not tangible, we use like capacity numbers from the school. There's no capacity numbers for fire, is what you're saying, like how many firefighters show up at a fire versus how many homes in the neighborhood, for example.
Right. It's at what point does that get triggered? You know, if you're looking at, for instance, a 100 subdivision home, where is that tangible number where we trigger, well, okay, this kicks in adequate public facilities, fire can no longer handle that. We don't have those standards to which we measure upon.
Yeah, does the sheriff have a calculation based on developments or communities on what, and maybe I'll ask this to Commissioner McCord, is there any standard in your department that you're aware of that calculates a new development or anything of what you can handle, what you can, or?
No, call volume, and it varies day of the week, whatever. I mean, if
So it's
somebody
not
dials
based
911,
on,
we
it's not
respond.
just- but it's not based on how many houses or a subdivision or lots or anything like that?
No, there's nothing.
When this was adopted, that was the weakness
Right.
with those standards,
Right.
because there's really no standard. It gives flexibility. If you're going to tie a standard in there, it takes the flexibility away from the staff and this board to make decisions.
Well, none of that. There is no, it's not defensible. If we pull the trigger on it and say, well, we don't have enough sheriff and sheriff's deputies to respond to calls. Well, unless the sheriff steps up and says, I can't answer the call anymore when the 911 wall comes in, now we have a problem. But until that point, we don't have a problem, and it's not defensible. And that's the problem, and I think we've struggled with this, at least my entire time I've been on this board. We've talked about it and talked about it and talked about it, that this is not, it just doesn't work the way that it is. Where schools, on the other hand, we know that a school is over capacity. We know that we have to build another school.
So if this
Okay.
was,
I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was gonna say, so if any of these ever got challenged in court and we denied something based on, we didn't feel there was enough fire or law enforcement to handle this new development, we denied it. If it got challenged in court, we couldn't provide evidence to support our decision, is that correct?
Correct.
Based on, okay.
If it's not quantified, I mean, it needs to be quantified.
And I don't know about,
I'll get to you in a minute.
Currituck was the first county to adopt an adequate public facilities in this state. And I guess maybe we're still the only county that's got one.
I think there may be one.
Cary
one other, or
adopted
we
one,
still-
but they rescinded theirs.
Yeah.
Paul, did you have a question or a comment?
I did, actually. So I have a couple issues, right? And it doesn't have to do with the deletion of the fire and EMS and all that kind of stuff, because it doesn't. It goes back to the school system on several fronts. One, depending on how this is written, we still can't control school lines, right? And so we can be put in a position through the Board of Education's, actions to purposefully overcrowd a school, right? Because if they can move a line and relieve pressure, and they elect not to, for whatever reason, then that puts the onus on us. In effect, economic development and growth is now in the school system's hands. And that's not what they're asked to do. They're asked to administer education to the students. So that's number one. Number two, we've been in sessions where the school system has come up with how they define adequate facilities. And I would argue some of them are clearly, not taking into account some of the things that are going on. Specifically, any student assigned to Currituck County High School back in the day, and I don't know what's going on today because we haven't had a meeting to discuss this, that unless we come up with a mutually agreed upon, these are the standards that we're going to apply for what a school capacity number is, here's the conditions by which we will move a school line in order to absorb or to shift, then I think, we're two islands, right? It's the Board of Commissioners and it's the school board. And it is not the purpose of the Board of Education to control how the county grows. And if we're not careful, that's exactly what's going to happen here. And in fact, we've seen an aspect of that. Their failure to take sound legal advice, specifically, don't pick a lot in the middle of a subdivision that hasn't been approved yet to build your new elementary school, for example, costing us 2 years, costing us about $26 million as a county. They're driving the bus. And it's yellow.
I would hope so.
Pun intended. So my question is, because I'd love to come down and if they say, here's the conditions, here's when we'll move a school line.
Mm-hmm.
And this is the only district I've ever lived in that has been so reluctant to do what is common just about everywhere else, right?
Mm-hmm.
You get to a number, you shift the line. Well,
some of them is annual.
Well, perfect
Of
example.
course it is.
Like Paul
Well,
said too, perfect example. Like
I wasn't gonna say it.
Currituck Middle and Mayotte Middle. Currituck Middle has about 345, 350 kids. Mayotte Middle has about 650.
But
that's a massive.
Right.
You move that line a mile, that's probably 420 to 570.
But I had a kid that attended one semester, his entire senior year. That was considered a full-time student.
Mm-hmm. Well, we've talked about that and getting different numbers,
Exactly.
right? As the year goes on, what does
Exactly.
that look like? Right.
Average daily.
Not that
Well,
opening day.
it's a no kidding. Anyway, so to go to this sounds great, but I'm not comfortable with the way we calculate the school capacities.
Well, that's a different discussion.
Right.
Agreed.
So to
we
your
need to
point then-
rectify that, but we don't throw the baby out with the bathwater.
Well,
We still have an adequate public facilities
Question, well, so,
Part.
and one of the things you brought up, one of the neighborhoods, they brought in their expert for schools, and they laid out a plan whereby the lines could be moved, where everything could be moved, and proved that there were in fact adequate public facilities, right, with an expert.
Right.
In that case, we didn't have a leg to stand on. They proved that you could do these things and make a difference. It was whether or not the school board chooses to do that, we can't be beholden to them for that.
Agreed.
Right?
Agreed. All I'm saying is, I would desire this to actually have meaning so that the Board of Education, and you're right, this has nothing to do with that occurring. But until that occurs,
So.
here's a stick I don't like getting hit with.
Do we just get rid of adequate public facilities, period?
That would be my suggestion.
No,
No.
That's,
no, I would.
It's always, this was adopted in 1994, and capacity numbers have always been a moving target
right.
because it seemed like they bring in a consultant, this is how many people you can put in that school. Then the next year, another consultant come in. And I know like Moyock Elementary, we had one study back in the late 90s that said approximately 600. They brought a consultant in the following year, and it was down to like 340. So that's always been that moving target. It's like pin the tail on the donkey with a blindfold.
Well, the state changes the rules a lot of times. We can act
Right.
like it's just our local Board of Education, but the reality is that's not true, or
Yeah.
we're being political. The reality is when the General Assembly changes the class
K through
sizes, it affects how many kids you can have in a classroom. So it is a moving target. And, I once again, I don't think that means we throw this completely out, because I think this has merit in how we control growth. And I think that's an important tool, is to look at how growth is occurring, whether it's the whole county or just the northern end. Yes, there are tools, and I wish they would draw those lines differently, but I don't think that's a call to scrap this completely.
Right. And
The
that's-
whole purpose of it was a planning tool that we could project with development how many students we would see. And until the advent of the national builders coming in here and building homes at a faster rate than we had ever experienced, it was very accurate on terms of projections and the way that we were going.
And are you referring to the Titchler study, Ellen?
Well, some of it was based off the Tishler study, and we implemented the adequate public facilities ordinance because we needed a tool to be able to utilize to see what the impact of new development was going to have on our schools. And
When I reviewed the data as compared to the Titchler study to some of the subdivisions, and you actually helped me with this, right? Not the data piece, because that's kind of a one-man. But when I compared the data that we were seeing in the schools and the subdivisions that were being built, the conclusion I came to, and you may have a different point of view, was we lucked into hitting the Titchler number. And the reason is the Titchler number does not capture your 10-acre, subdivisions, right? It's not capturing the one-ofs, which turn into 10-ofs going up on East Ridge Road, right? It's not capturing that. And you said one of the subdivisions that you were patrolling in, that the number of kids getting on school buses was far less than what he would have expected to have seen while on patrol. And so we've hit it, but I think that was really, again, looking at the numbers, it was more accidental than it was deliberate. I mean, Titchler gets us close, but you don't want to bet the bank on it because it is undershooting the reality, because it's coming in at the right curve, and there's a lot of subdivisions going up that aren't part of that calculation. Does that make sense?
yeah,
So, well, we've segued off of what we're trying to do here tonight, and let's get rid of fire and EMS.
Let's just get rid of fire and EMS, and we can go back to this.
Get
So
back to-
moved.
So, well, we have to open this up to the public.
I'm sorry,
first, but
I was being.
so yeah, Kevin, did you have anything else that you needed to?
I can wrap this up quickly because I think we've
Great
had
idea.
a good conversation about it that
Right, all right.
covers
Thank you, sir.
what else I have to say. The other change is to 6.6, and that is the adequate public facility standards. We change that to schools and remove the other facilities you've been discussing.
So that would be adequate public
School
facilities.
facilities.
Yep, agreed.
And then the policy goals and policies that should be considered, infrastructure and county services goals 1, 2, 3, 7, and 8, and policy 7.2. And what these speak to is really providing sufficient services for the growth, adequate, public facilities across the board. It also speaks to the importance of our schools and how they are a valuable resource to our community, and that the adequate public facilities ordinance should be followed, which in this case, it would still be followed, just address only schools. As I said earlier, the staff recommends approval, as did the planning board by 5 to vote. Oh, I'm sorry, they recommended denial by a 5
they
to 0
wanted
vote.
next, right.
Staff recommended approval.
Okay. Very good. Well, this, as I said, is a public hearing. I do not have anyone signed up this evening. Any further questions for Kevin before I open to the public? Okay.
Thank you.
So I'll open the floor to anyone that did not sign up. If they would like to come forward and be heard on this agenda item tonight, please do so. Seeing no one in the audience step forward, I will close the public comment.
Mr. Chairman, I'm sorry.
Would you like to make a motion, sir?
I would move to approve PB 23-8, never mind, 23-22, Currituck County, to amend the UDO ordinance, chapters 2, 6, and 10, to define adequate public facilities ordinance as it relates to adequate school capacities and remove adequate public facilities reference from other public facilities.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
Second.
Owen, give it to you. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
I
Oh,
have some
sorry.
comments.
I'm sorry. Please.
Okay. I just want to make a comment that, and again, the reason why we're addressing this for the public, and like I'd asked the sheriff's department, about if you have any standards. If you go to any volunteer fire departments right now and you ask them what kind of load they can handle or capacity, they don't have a number. They don't have a formula. There's nothing out there. So, again, just to clarify, we're doing this because we have nothing to defend it. If we deny something based on these services, if it went to court, we have nothing, no numbers. We can't defend our decisions on that. So that's the same with the fire department, just like the sheriff's out there.
It's the priority, like you said, it's the priority of the call. I mean, if it's a 911 call and you're at a dispute between two neighbors over a chicken or something like that, I mean, like I said, they go to
there.
Now, I mean, being serious, I mean, that happens. I mean, the priority of the calls, you might have to leave.
All right.
But
That's
we're
the only
responding
comment
every time.
Yeah, that's the only comment I wanted to make. I'm
Thank you,
sorry.
sir. I'm sorry I jumped ahead of you, Mike.
okay.
Appreciate that. Okay, anything further? Kevin, good? All right. Next up this evening.
We didn't vote.
We didn't vote yet. I
Well, we did, but we got to.
We did.
Well, I had comments.
You had a comment.
I had comments.
We'd already voted. We already got a unanimous.
Oh, I didn't vote yet.
You didn't vote?
No, because I said I had a okay.
Everyone else voted.
Okay.
How would you like to vote, sir?
Okay. Well, all right then. It passed.
It passed.
Okay.
You didn't vote, so it's a yes.
It's a
Yeah,
yes.
it's just, yeah, so it's
That's an
passed, so yeah.
affirmative. There we
That's
go.
fine. Yeah, that's fine.
All right.
Mike, I feel you.
No, it's okay. I just
No, I
figured
know.
we had comments before we voted, but that's okay.
Normally we do.
We've never seen
Before we
Leanne
got it
this
out of
much
our
in front of us
system.
Okay.
in this meeting before. Get those steps.
Mike, do you want to vote again?
Huh? No, that's okay. It doesn't matter. It's only please.
All right. Next up, PB 23-16, Currituck County. Request to amend the Unified Development Ordinance, Chapters 4 and 10, to provide dimensional standards for placement of a storage maintenance shed on a lot prior to establishing a principal use. Again.
Thank you, Chairman. Okay, this text amendment was requested by the board. What it does is two things. The first is it provides dimensional standards for a shed to be located on a lot prior to a principal use. And the second is it provides a definition of shed, which is something that is not currently in the UDO. The UDO currently does not have a maximum size for a shed or shed allowances. Typically, it's been the policy that we allow a smaller shed, usually 12 by 12, to be on a lot for maintenance purposes, to upkeep the lot, to store equipment there. What this text amendment does is it provides dimensional standards and allows for a larger shed, depending on the lot size, to house this equipment for upkeep on a lot. The point being, larger lots, you're going to need more equipment than can probably fit in a 12 by 12 shed. The specific standards for lots less than 3 acres, the maximum size of 200 square feet for a shed. For lots greater than 3 acres, a maximum size of 400 square feet. And for lots in the AG district that are greater than 50 acres, so you're dealing with large lots where you're going to need large equipment to upkeep that lot, a maximum size of 1,500 square feet. The second thing this amendment does is proposes a definition for shed. And the definition is a structure intended for storage of equipment and materials that are incidental to the care and maintenance of the land and features of the parcel on which the shed is located. A shed shall not be used as a dwelling. Staff and the planning board found this text amendment to be consistent with the Imagine Currituck plan, specifically Land Use Goal 1. And both have recommended approval, planning board by a 5-0 vote.
Kevin, can you go back to the size slide? That's-
for a
That's a 20 by 20.
larger than 3 acres. I mean, what if somebody had,
No, we're looking to go hay and do hay. There's no way we'll get it under a 400 square foot.
Would hay be considered?
But I'm over,
Wait,
what?
would hay be considered a shed, or would it be considered a different building?
It's
And
a
it would be an
barn.
agriculture, it'd be a fit.
That barn?
At that point,
Yes,
it
it'd be
could be an
barn. This is just for
agricultural
a storage
structure.
shed.
Okay,
This just makes she sheds legal.
Yes, if you're gonna store wheat or, yes, that's
oh, and
different.
what's a she shed?
So
who needs a 1,500 square foot shed?
Right now, if you have 80 acres of land,
motorcycle?
Paul, right now, if you have 80 acres of land, the only biggest you can put is a 12 by 12 shed on.
Oh,
it.
no, I agree,
Yeah,
that's
okay.
inadequate.
Yeah.
I'm just,
So if you had a 5 acre, if you had a 5 acre lot, now you can put a 20 by 20 on that lot for if you just like basically a building dwelling to have storage or stuff to maintain that lot or.
Back to a bush hog or something in there,
Yeah.
yeah.
It would be a shed to hold your riding lawnmower and other equipment that you would need for upkeep.
What separates a shed from, like in Paul, like if you were gonna do a pole barn?
well, that's why, if you go forward, the definition is storage of equipment materials that are incidental to the care and maintenance of the land and features of the
Yeah,
parcel.
that's not a pole
Well,
barn.
I think there's also a distinction between a vacant lot, an undeveloped parcel, versus one where you're doing an activity such as hay, where it would be considered an agricultural use. And then you can place a barn on there. Agricultural uses have several exemptions and such.
You're good?
So this is before you build a house or something like that.
Right.
Correct, yes.
Yeah, somebody's buying a big piece of land, they want to start clearing it and getting ready to build a house on it. And they want to store, their machinery for.
Or if they
for
had
that.
50 acres and they wanted to put their lumber and some of the other stuff inside of a.
Yeah. Gives them more space than a 12 by 12 little shed. And now we define a shed now, so you can't live in it. We didn't have a definition before, so.
But you're at. Okay.
Yep.
My story.
Okay, well, I'm gonna,
Wait a minute,
oh,
public hearing.
I'm sorry. Oh, we got public comments, I'm sorry.
Yep, Kevin, was that, did that conclude your presentation?
Yes,
All
yes,
right.
sir.
Thank you.
Thank
All
you.
right. This again is a public hearing, so I'll open the floor for public comments. I have no one signed up, and seeing no one jump up, I will close this for public comment and open the floor for a motion.
All right, Mr. Chairman, I'm gonna go ahead and move to approve PB 2318 because the request is consistent with the Imagine Currituck 2040 Vision Plan Land Use Goal 1.
Thank you.
I'll second it.
Thank you. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
You don't
All
want
right.
to, no.
Thank you.
Next up, do we need a break or anything before we jump
No,
on this next one?
no.
Keep going.
Plug along.
All right. Next up, PB 23-16, NAS Enterprises LLC. Request for conventional rezoning of 9.5 acres from Ag to GB for the following properties located off Survey Road at Currituck Highway and Mayock Township. Tax map 15, parcel 47F. Tax map 15, parcel 47G. And tax map 15, parcel 47H. Kevin, you might as well just stay up here. Now you get your steps in tonight.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
All right, let's me get back across. She's getting her steps in too tonight. All right.
All right. So this request is a conventional rezoning for 3 parcels. They total 9.58 acres in land. They are off Survey Road, shown here. I'll show it in a little more detail. They are the 3 parcels directly north of LJ Beaners. 2 of the 3 parcels are vacant. The middle parcel does have a single-family dwelling on it. It has been on there for some time. It was probably constructed, I would guess, in the early 20th century. The property is zoned AG. You can see the surrounding properties. Majority of the properties within that wedge between Survey Road and Currituck Highway are zoned general business or for commercial use. The only exception are those 3 properties with single-family homes along Survey Road. As I said, this is a conventional rezoning. With a conventional rezoning, use and development of the site will be subject to the rules of the UDO and staff review through the permitting process. And let me just speak to, since residential is a hot topic, I just will give a comparison of the existing zoning to the proposed zoning. This is on page 36 of your agenda packet. The current zoning would permit 1 more minor subdivision of the lots for a 40,000 square foot lot, then 3 acres after that. The proposed zoning would be 40,000 square foot lots in the GB. The GB just adds a few more residential options over the AG, such as upper story dwelling units, live-work dwelling units, and such. So it just gives a little more variety of residential than the AG does. The site is designated G3, which is a mixed-use center. It's a full-service designation in the Imagine Currituck. There are 6 goals and policies that should be considered. They are Land Use Goal 1, encouraging development at appropriate densities. Land Use Policy 1.2, consider adopted small area and civic master plans. Land Use Policy 1.4, protecting the uniqueness of the county. Infrastructure and County Services Goal 1, ensure sufficient services to accommodate the growing population. Infrastructure and County Services Goal 8, to ensure public services remain at a sufficient level. And lastly, Northern Mainland Land Use Policy 1.1, foster growth and development while maintaining a distinct natural environment. The site is also located in the Moyock Small Area Plan, where it is designated full service, as are all the lots surrounding it. There are 2 small area plan policies that should, or 3, that should be considered, and they are CC1, encourage development that is compatible with the vision, policies, and future land use map. ST1, promote areas dedicated to community serving businesses that foster a Main Street feel. And ST2, support local entrepreneurs that establish community-serving businesses and diversify the local economy. Staff recommended denial of this application. I will start by saying that staff does recognize all the parcels around RGB, and it is consistent with the zoning of the surrounding parcels and would complete that wedge between Survey Road and Currituck Highway as a general business zoning. As we typically do, we recommend a denial where we prefer conditional rezonings where there is a development plan that we can evaluate as to consistency with county adopted plans and ordinances. The planning board recommended approval of this item by a unanimous 5-0 vote.
So you brought up the existing properties that are adjacent to it are GB, And those GB are not conditional GB. They're just
They are not conditional. It is
right.
straight
So,
GB.
The reason I ask that is why would we single out these 3 parcels when everything around it is? And the Board of Commissioners, I guess, at some point did that when they approved the land use map. Said, okay, this is going to be GB in this region,
Right.
right? And for whatever reason, that got picked out, probably because of the residents that was there, or whatever reason.
Right. There's 2 areas that
Not
that
logical
divide.
to have 9 acres out of 70-some just singled out like you're saying.
Right. I just wondered what if there was some particular thing that was giving staff a headache or stomach heartache over this, or what it was that.
No, I think I can put it like this. You know, we traditionally, or since 2007, we like to see that conditional zoning allow us to evaluate it to a plan. However, you know, as I said, we recognize the situation of this being that it is surrounded by GB, and you know, if there were a situation where it makes sense, you know, this could fall into that.
Kevin, walk me through the timetables for the difference between a conventional rezoning and a conditional rezoning. What's the difference in the timetables as to how much time those things take?
There may be a difference, there may not. It would depend on the use that goes in. So if they have a use that's permitted in the ordinance, it would just have to go through a site plan review, and those timetables would be the same. If there's a use that involves a special use permit, then it would come before the board. The main difference between the conventional and the conditional would be, in a conditional, it is conditioned to a plan. So it does need to substantially meet the plan that would have been approved with this application. So the additional time could be if there was a modification from that originally approved plan, they would have to come back before the board.
So
and I
if
think
I'm-
that's
I'm
where
sorry.
the time could really add on.
So if I'm just looking to buy this for an investment, and I'm not sure what I want to do with my 3 lots of roughly 9 acres, a conditional zoning would not make sense, or would? I'm just asking, kind of talking myself through why we would
Well,
require one.
There's some potential inherent restrictions by conditional GB.
I know that. So my question is, if I'm buying these as just an investment and I don't know what
go
my
GB.
investment's going to look like in a year, would a conditional rezoning make sense?
right, and you are hitting on one of the exact conversations that was had at the planning board, where it's, you know, this applicant's coming forward and saying, I don't know what I want to do with the land yet. I can't give you a plan. I just know I want it to be consistent with the zoning around.
But any other land around it though, somebody could buy that and put anything they want to then right
Right.
now.
Correct, that's permitted in the
Yeah.
GB
So
district.
if we are worried that, I don't know, let me pick one off the list. If we're worried that
Meat slaughterhouse.
a meat slaughterhouse, thank you, let's just pick one. If we're worried that a meat slaughterhouse is gonna go on this, then we could address that by not allowing meat slaughterhouses in general business, am I correct?
Yes, you are correct.
Okay.
And then a lot of those uses, the more intrusive uses, would require a special use permit, which would cause it to come before the board.
And then Publix sells it.
All right, thank you.
If I remember correctly, when we rezoned the area where LJ Beaner's was, there was this same discussion, if I remember correctly, about it being general business, and he stood before us and promised us exactly what he was going to put on there. So I have a problem worrying about what might go on there unless it is conditional rezoning.
Well, he did, I do remember, here. But what he said was, my wife says that this will be successful, but just in case it's not, I want other options.
Right.
But he was very careful to say, and I'm sure it will be very successful, right? Didn't you say that?
Well, I think also you got to look at, they've got a major investment with the new building at LJ Beaner's. He's not gonna put something there that would be detrimental to what LJ Beaner's is doing. if he does anything, it will be to complement that and help keep things successful.
Well, at the end of the
He's not
day,
gonna put something
if
beside
we don't
his
want stuff in GB, then
We should take it
We should
out.
take it out.
Out.
meat slaughterhouse.
We don't worry about the lot just south of it that could potentially be the meat slaughterhouse, but we're worried about the 9 acres right here, so, okay.
I
you
did
got
have a
65
question though, and that's, why our engineering didn't make a comment or review this.
Know that we can,
Well, they kind of did through email. Yeah, it's in there. I mean, they did go through,
reviewed, no, right?
they didn't review in TRC, but there is an email, and I'll pull it up here in just a minute on page.
Because under TRC, it says
Yeah, I know.
nothing
But I
provided.
said kind of they did. After the maps, there is a section where there is a back and forth between, it's on page 50. So Eric Weatherly, Public Utilities Director, did weigh in that the county does not have sewer available at this time. So sort of they did, but they didn't weigh in on TRC.
But it needs to be on the TRC, is my suggestion.
Is that a Ike or Kevin? That's,
I'm just speaking it out. I don't care who.
right.
Doesn't matter.
And
But
let me ask about that, Kevin. So if there's not county sewer available, what are the options for this?
Well, of course, any development plan could look at alternatives such as a septic, going on a septic system.
Eagle Creek,
There is a private system in close proximity, or, it could wait out for county services to be available, knowing that that is in the works.
Okay. Any further discussion, comments, questions for Kevin?
Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Miller, would you like to comment on anything tonight? You came in late? I think we have all you guys sign up for public comment, but I know you weren't here to sign up, Sam, so.
I can do that now if you need me to.
No, we can add you to the list, but since you guys are ones asking for this.
Appreciate it.
All right, well, my name is Majestic Anderson. I've lived here my entire life, multi-generational lived here. My grandparents, my mom, my dad, my grandparents, my great-grandparents, great-great-great-grandparents, been here forever. We have farmland stretched throughout this county. I plan on keeping farmland stretched throughout this county. I want the same visions that you have, I have. As a matter of fact, my niece works for a farm over Twisted Willow. You may have heard that. And she's working on trying to bring some of that, the renewed farm items that are going on, into this county, and that's our next step with some of our farmland. Unfortunately, this little 9-acre plot in the middle is not what we would want to do renewed farming on. It's not what, it's listed as, everything around it is general business. And again, I hate to beat the cat here, but, the people behind me, there's no conditional, sorry, I'm used to going
With
to
you.
bed at 8 o'clock.
All right, we're with you.
There's nothing restricting those people behind us, there's nothing restricting us at either side, right or left. I just don't think it would be right, because I can't put they want a plan with contingency. So they want to know with the contingency deal that it would be, how your entrances, where they would be, how high your building would be, all this sort of thing. On the application, that's what I have to fill out in order to make, in order for it to be that way. That doesn't make sense at all. I'd have to make all that up, and I'd be wasting your time and everybody else's time, because that's just not, I'd have to make it up. Because right now, what I want to do is sell this land. I heard you say a couple times, talking about 33% of the people in Currituck work outside of the county. I want it to be general business, because I want business here. I don't want houses, I want business here. Farmland, I think I addressed, there's farmland within the county that we want to keep farmland. But there's nothing in that little spot right there. All that is I want to bring more business in. As a lifelong resident here, that's gonna bring taxes in and everything else, and not all the other problems that I keep hearing over and over and over and over and over again. So I don't see any reason why we can't turn this general business. And I don't know what you were talking about with your TRW thing.
All good. We understand where you're coming from.
Okay, whatever.
All good.
A couple things to piggyback off of what Jesse is saying as well. We have taken a look at this and the different things. And it's a real challenge when you do conditional zoning. And I understand the anticipation that you have when you say, geez, we're gonna let you do GB here, and then, what happens? 10 years from now, 5 years from now, 10 weeks from now, who knows? The challenge with it, we really should try to do a better job controlling it through special use permits, limiting some of the things that are in GB if you don't like GB and you want to cut that down, create a subset of that. But it's incredibly difficult to do conditional, because conditional puts us through the process. For instance, with LJ Veners, to use that as an example, if we had done conditionally with that right now, we'd probably be somewhere around 7 months from opening right now today, because of the problems it creates. We got in there, we went in the utility side, and we had planned for a 15-inch culvert to come through the front of the property. But when you do all this stuff, you don't always figure out, where everything is. You don't know who had, because that easement's there. And there's no list that I can go and say, who's on this in this easement? I don't know. So you go out there and you start calling, you call this utility in, you call your tickets in, you start figuring out. We got a fiber line, we got a copper backbone, we got a gas line, we got 2 water lines, we got a water main, we got 2 power feeds, we got another power feed, and we're supposed to run a 15-inch culvert through that with slope. Never gonna happen. I mean, all that stuff would have to go like this over top of the pipe. You just can't do it. And none of those utilities are gonna move it. So we had to go back to engineering, figure it out, get that stuff, work with planning, do those things, come up with a solution that still does the stormwater piece, but doesn't require putting that culvert in, and move forward. Otherwise, 4 months, back to the beginning, through the whole process, come to you guys, and you guys say, why are you here? Well, we had a utility problem. Couldn't you guys work this out on your own? No, process says we gotta come back through. We went around the back of the property, had a similar thing, we had to make a small adjustment, but when we say minor adjustment, we're talking minor stuff. So like, if you gotta do something a little bit different, like make the sidewalk different, because now you gotta have 5 feet for access to walk around the back, because it didn't get caught in TRC by all the people there, including engineering and everybody else, guess what? 4 months, back to the if we're lucky, and if we miss one of the deadlines, 5 months. So I'm just taking a wild stab in the dark. We've been open 2 months. Let's take 2 off, 7 months. I'd still be sitting here going through the process, doing paperwork, meeting with everybody to make those 2 changes. That's what happens sometimes with it, because those are the rules. So it's real hard when you have everything around you that way and those elements to work that way. And it makes it very difficult for an investor to come in, because you have no idea what anybody's going to do. But controlling through a special use permit, where you get another chance to look at it, say, we'd love to give you this permit, but we're concerned about this and this and this. What can you do about that? And then we can give you this permit. That's, to me, a better way to do it, because you get through that hurdle. And then planning and engineering and developers, they can work together to do that stuff. That's just my suggestion, but that's the challenge. That's why it's really hard to do that stuff, especially when you don't know. SB&K Investments, the company that I manage, acquired one of these parcels, and that's why I'm here tonight. And we acquired that before the rezoning was done, mainly because we just wanted to control what Exord was. My wife has a Christian business. We're careful about who we put in there and what happens. So we didn't want just anybody coming in. We had the ability to acquire it. We had the money. We bought it. And we said, we kind of did the same thing you are saying you like to do too. So we're concerned about our neighborhood, who our neighbors are, how they act, and what they do too. But we are asking for a general business in this, just like all the other properties that we touch, everything around us as well. We've also brought a couple of expert witnesses for testimony if you'd like to hear any of that about valuations and those pieces. Mr. Kimmel, who's an experienced realtor with a lot of experience in those pieces. We've also brought Kim Tate, who's a appraiser who's done the paperwork and gone through and taken a look at the valuations.
No, not for this.
Thanks, Sam.
And just to clarify, slaughterhouse would be HI.
Dang it. By the way,
I knew I should have looked at the list. I knew I should have looked at the list.
Did Currituck win?
We didn't. It was 4 sets. They won the first set overwhelmingly really well, played excellent. Second set was very close. It was like 25-21, and then we lost the next two and lost in 4. And I'm just like,
Now you're here.
Well, thanks for coming.
Yep, thanks for coming. Okay,
And nice shirt.
thank you. All right.
Hey, I did have one question for Jesse. Jesse, I forgot I was going to ask this. The home that obviously you own the land, obviously so you own the home. That home's been vacant for how long?
Numerous years now.
I was gonna say
It's-
7 or
there's
8?
no- Yeah, there's no water turned on there. The electricity has been disconnected there. There is a shed in the very back that, not a shed, it's a garage, basically.
How
We
many?
store some things in there. But there's nothing.
I thought so. I mean, like I said,
My
so nobody
granddad's
was like
house.
being rehomed. Yeah, that's basically where I was asking that question.
No, there's no water, no electricity, nothing. there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks.
All right, thank you.
I had Mr. Kent answer, when they were talking about conditional zoning and all these steps.
Yes.
Go through if anything's wrong. What's the difference if it was just?
Mike.
Sorry. What's the difference if it was just, general business?
The difference would be that if it were developed just under the GB, it would need to meet the standards of the UDO, and depending on the use, all the development standards therein. Design standards, site standards, all that would have to be met. If it's conditional and you approve it to a plan, it has to be developed to that plan. What Sam was speaking to are what staff is allowed to modify, minor adjustments. The ordinance is very specific with what we can modify. And a lot of the things aren't on that list. And if it's not on that list, then we don't have the administrative authority to modify it. It has to come before this board to do so.
I'm remembering asking Mark Bissell, why are you back in front of us?
Yes.
And it's because the sidewalk had to move 4 inches over.
At development.
Right. The sidewalk had to move, and because the sidewalk had to move 4 inches, they had to go back through the whole process to
Right.
come back out. So,
And I will say, down in the planning staff, we keep a board, and when we come across things, we put little stickies on it of things that we want to address, and that is one of the things. We want to look at, possibly ways to provide more flexibility in the conditional zoning, to not make it as difficult and as locked in.
and then the other thing I would toss out is that the conditional use, right? You need to know exactly what you're trying to do, correct? I mean,
Not exact uses per se, but it's more you need to lay out how the site is going to be developed. So you get it down to, hey, it's a commercial use. You don't know what kind of commercial is going in, what kind of business is, but you are going to be bound to a building location, site layout, and that sort of
Parking.
thing. Yes, you would be, laying that out at the front end. We saw that.
could see-
You'd have a significant financial
That's
investment.
up
to go
front,
conditional.
that may not even be
Right.
what the end use is, so I get it.
Right, and we saw that in the who knows if it's going to be the grocery store next to Moyoc Middle School, when you had the major retail center, and if you'll remember, there were 3 out parcels, and there were just very basic layouts, because they needed to provide a layout for those out parcels, but they did not know what those uses would be. And under the ordinance, you may see that again if, a different tenant wants to lease those with a different design. That's a good example.
Okay, thank you. Anything further for Mr. Kemp? All right.
Thank you.
Sir. Okay, we got Mr. Miller and Jesse out of here, but how about Susan Powers?
Good evening. My name is Susan Powers, and I live at 251 Greenview in Eagle Creek, and I drive by this property almost every day. My concern here too is, as you know, is the sewage, and you mentioned maybe tying into Eagle Creek. Please don't. I'm already concerned about the Foss development, the Flora development, the grocery store is all gonna be tied into Eagle Creek, and this could be just another thing that could tip us over the edge. And I also agree with the planning board that I have a concern that there's no even kind of vague plan of what they're gonna do with the property. You know, is it gonna be a store? Is it gonna be a restaurant? Anything like that? So I know you have a lot of things to consider, and I'm really truly on the fence whether or not you should approve it or deny it, but I just do wanna mention about the sewage, because that's my drumbeat
And
here in Currituck.
question to county manager, I mean, that's not, as far as hooking up to an existing sewage plant, that's not our decision. Isn't it the state's got to?
No, that would be the Utilities Commission.
Right, so
probably
it wouldn't be us.
Creating the franchise area and then the Department of Environmental Quality.
While you're here, we haven't heard in a while. How are things going up there?
So the latest is, as of August 15th, they are waiting for loan approval for the new company to buy it. And once that happens, then they may go in and like redo our sewage, but that's a year or two out. All the stuff's being sent from Foss into Eagle Creek, being treated and distributed in Eagle Creek, and then eventually will hopefully the treated stuff will go back to Foss.
Are you having any problems? I guess is it improved? I mean, we haven't seen y'all in a while,
Yeah,
so
it
I'm
has
hoping it has.
improved significantly. They're more responsive, getting information out to the community. They have somebody on site almost every day, which I think has made a huge difference. So we are still having problems, but they're responding to them quickly, which doesn't become a big, huge problem that shuts the entire system down. So that doesn't.
I saw somebody in there Monday working with one of the pump trucks.
Did you go to the concert?
I did not. Because, you know, I heard there were going to be 35,000 people, so.
Everybody in Currituck went there.
You know, I mean, but if you told him 6 months ago he'd be number 1 in the Billboard charts, he'd tell you you're crazy.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, 35,000 was not without the realm of possibility.
Right.
All right, well, thank you.
Thank you. Have a good evening. All right. Lastly, I had Kim Old signed up. Good evening, sir.
Good afternoon, Commissioners, Chairman. I'm here to support the approval to rezone the NAS Enterprises. They have 2 4-acre parcels and the SB and K Investments 1.32 acre parcel land from agricultural zoning to a general business zoning. The NAS Enterprises property is currently listed for sale, and I am the listing agent. When I listed that piece of property, I priced it as if it was zone general business, because honestly, at that time, I didn't think there would be any problem rezoning that property. As it's been, y'all have said, it's to the north, to the east, and to the south is all zone GB. And to the west, it's single-family mainland and ag. That's across the street, across Survey Road. And in my opinion, the highest and best use of this property is general business. Kevin, when you talked about taxes, I ran a little scenario today. If you take the county tax assessment of the adjoining general business properties and average them, they're averaged at $39,500 an acre. If you take the 3 parcels that they own, the county tax assessment, and average it, they're valued at $45,600 an acre. And if you take the ag zoning parcel across the street, it's assessed at $6,800 an acre. And I'd submit to you right now that it's already being taxed as GB business at that rate. So that's something you might want to consider. And the property would certainly generate more tax revenue for Currituck County as a general business zone property than it would if it stayed agricultural. And the 3 properties also have, as far as a safety issue, good access to Currituck Highway with a stoplight. Another reason for the approve the rezoning is the other tax benefit to Currituck County, which is if you took the 3 of these properties, if I sold them at the asking price, the 1% land transfer tax would be $19,160. If you took all three of these properties and sold them at the average farmland price per acre, the 1% land transfer tax generated would be $958. So the difference of $18,202 in tax revenue for Currituck County if it was sold as the general business at the asking price. And my final and best reason for the property to be zoned general business is the Currituck County Planning Board has already given its approval to rezone these properties from ag to GB. So I support this rezoning, would ask that you vote in favor of rezoning these three parcels of property from agricultural zoning to general business.
Okay, and before you step away from the lectern, we need your name and address for posterity's sake.
Kim Old, 104 Tulls Bay Drive.
Thank you, sir. All right. I have no one else signed up. Was there anyone else who'd like to speak to this agenda item? Seeing none, I'll close the public comment. Any further discussion from the board?
I have one question.
Yes, ma'am.
With it being in agriculture, it says that there would be, how many houses allowed, and if we change it to general business, how many will it be increased by if they're gonna develop it?
Well, I'm not sure about the actual number as they are smaller parcels. As it is zoned now, there could be one more minor subdivision of those lots to create one more 40,000 square foot lot, then they would be limited to 3 acres, which is what the ag is. Under general business, each lot, the size is 40,000 square feet. So the lot size, is smaller in GB. Once we get through that first minor subdivision, that would be permitted on the site.
And if they did that, they'd have to come in for a special use permit and all that kind of stuff, right? They'd have to go through the whole entire.
Depending on the type of development.
Right.
By acreage, you're looking at maybe 7 or 8 houses. But again, you would have to look at the design and layout of the site. So I'm just speaking strictly numbers. I'm not sure, once you start to put the pieces in with lot width and that sort of thing, what you could get.
Okay. Anything else from the board? Someone like to make a motion on this?
Mr. Chairman, I'm going to move to approve PB 23-16 NAS Enterprises LLC because the request is consistent with the Imagine Currituck 2040 vision plan goals and policies including, and I believe it does comply with LUP policy HN1, encourage development to occur at densities appropriate for the location. And I base that on the fact that everything surrounding it is already zoned general business. And policy CD4, highway-oriented commercial uses. Survey Road now is becoming a major roadway with Falls, Floor, and Eagle Creek coming out, and Lakeside. So I think it would meet in with CD4. And the request is reasonable in the public interest because it allows greater flexibility to improve investors looking at this property and allow for the highest and best use of the property.
Thank you, sir. We have a second.
Second.
Sorry, Mike got me.
Nope.
Gave it to you. Any further discussion on this? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, it carries unanimously. Thank you. All right, we're going to take a 5-minute recess and we'll finish up the rest of this agenda. All right. We'll call the meeting back into order. We'll move on to agenda item number 7, public hearing petition to name an unnamed road within Albemarle Sound Beach community of Poplar Branch Township, Mahi Lane.
So moved.
Okay, well, I'll introduce it first. I'll explain what this is.
Oh, okay.
Pursuant to NC General Statute 153A-239.1, a county may by ordinance name a road. The petition before you that's been submitted is for an unnamed road within the Albemarle Sound Beach community of Poplar Branch Township. They have requested for the county to name the road Mahi Lane. Really, the only restriction, the petition needed to have been signed by at least 50% plus of property owners along that street. They had quite a few sign that. And then the road name can't be deceptively similar to the name of any other public road in the vicinity. There is no other Mahi Lane, I do know that, in Currituck County. And I'm not sure if there's any deceptively similar, but that's kind of the parameters that you have to go off of.
Is that why they changed it from Mahi Lane, from Firefly Lane to Mahi Lane?
I'm not sure. But this does require a public hearing.
Okay. It's no name right now. It's no name road.
There's no name, right?
Can we just put road at the end of that? No name road?
That'd be better.
Oh, that's sweet.
Oh, I'm just saying.
We got a no-name political party.
All right.
No labels, I'm sorry.
All right. He wanted us out of here in 5 minutes. So this is, any, Megan, is there anything else that you need?
That's it.
Okay. Thank you. This is a public hearing, and there was no one signed up. There's no one left in the audience to sign up. Would any of the staff like to comment on this public hearing? No?
Yep.
Thank you. Okay. I will close the public hearing then.
Move for approval.
Kevin's moving for approval. Do we have a second? Second. Any comments? All in favor?
Aye. Forever.
I got him.
Never
I got him
that
now.
one down, Mike. All right, next up, new business. We have just consent agenda. Is there anything in there that is raising any concerns for any commissioners?
No, I think you explained the one item already about the windows, because
Yeah.
we
I
have
would,
addressed
Mr. Barklow asked me when these windows were put in, and I believe it was when the addition was added in the back.
1989 is when the back addition was complete.
A little overdue.
Yeah.
And that's what our consultant found, that these windows have served their useful life and they must be replaced.
Okay. All right, thank you. Can I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right. Can I have a motion to adjourn the regular meeting?
So moved. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, I'll open the special meeting of the Tourism Development Authority. We have some budget amendments.
Ice rink?
Ice rink, yep. And I think we had a couple in here, did we not?
Yeah, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Yeah, see if I caught them. So, is there any questions, comments, concerns about anything in tourism? All right, then I'll move to approve the budget amendments.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I can have a motion to adjourn.
So moved. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, I'll open the special meeting of the Ocean Sands Water and Sewer District.
Megan.
I'm sorry, what was that?
Hey, did you have any questions about the Ocean Sands Water and Sewer?
No.
Okay. just checking.
Sorry. Mike is distracting.
Paul's getting a little punchy over here.
Visitor payment.
Is there any questions or comments from the board on that? All right, Paul, since you're on it, why don't you get us out of here on
So
that?
moved. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion to adjourn?
So moved. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Hey, Leanne, did you catch all that? I did. It's the Mike and Kevin Show. Thank you all.